Chapter 1, Leaving. Chapter text. He didn't want something like this to happen. He didn't want any of this to happen. But it still happened. Everything was going according to Hiccup's plan. He was just this far from taming that monstrous nightmare and proving that dragons are misunderstood to his village. But no. His stubborn father Stoic had to spook that nightmare. And all of this lead to his friend Toothless the Night Fury reveal himself to the village. And now the villagers are going to kill his friend. Hiccup can't let that happen. No, he won't let that happen. He knew after all this the villagers ain't gonna listen to him. They would possibly banish him and execute his friend. So he did the only thing he could. He climbed on Toothless' back and attached the saddle to his belt. Everyone stared at him with shock. Especially his father Stoic. "Hiccup, what are you doing?" Stoic yelled at him. Hiccup looked at his father dead in his eyes and said, "I am sorry, Dad, but I can't do this anymore. You were right. I am not a Viking. I am not a dragon killer." Hiccup took a deep breath and then said, "I am a dragon rider." Stoic's face showed pure anger as he heard his son's words. He gestured his men to attack them. The Vikings were waiting for this. They marched towards the dragon-human duo with a yell. Seeing what is happening, Toothless gave a roar and shot a plasma blast on the ground. The Vikings came to a halt and they backed away a bit. "Come on, bud. We need to get out of here," Hiccup whispered to Toothless. Toothless nodded and turned around and shot another plasma blast on the already damaged bars of the kill ring, making a huge hole. Big enough for both of them to escape. Toothless launched into the air and landed on the hole. Hiccup looked at Astrid, who was looking at him from inside the kill ring. She looked sad as she looked at him with teary eyes. "I am sorry, Astrid," Hiccup whispered to himself. Just as he and Toothless were going to launch into the air again, they heard a yell. Hiccup looked at his left to see a villager forcing his way out of the crowd with a crossbow. But as the villager got out of the crowd, Gobber ran into him. It looked like Gobber must have tripped because of the jostling, but Hiccup knew Gobber did it intentionally, as when he looked at Gobber's face, Gobber gave him a small nod, which went unnoticed by the villagers. Hiccup looked back at the horizon with determination. "Come on, bud," he said, and Toothless launched into the air. The villagers tried to shoot them down, but they avoided every incoming attack and made their way towards their cove at Raven's Point. They landed in the cove. Hiccup detached himself from Toothless' saddle. He ran towards some big rocks with Toothless following him. Behind the rocks there was a satchel he had hidden there. It was the very same satchel he had brought there yesterday. Hiccup opened the satchel and checked its contents. There were 2 sets of clothes, a fishing net, some forging tools, a flint, some journals, a few charcoal pencils, a first aid pouch containing herbs and ointments, an extra riding suite, and finally a bag containing all the gold he has collected by working at the forge. "Good thing we hid it here," Hiccup said with a chuckle. He quickly put on the riding suite and then strapped the satchel on his back. He hopped on Toothless and attached the saddle with his suite. Hiccup looked around for one last time and took a deep breath. Hiccup leaned down and whispered to Toothless, "It's just me and you from now on, bud." He patted Toothless' head and straightened his back as Toothless crooned. They then shot up in the sky and started going away from the island, towards the horizon. Hiccup felt a little pang in his chest as he went further away from the place he used to call home. But he quickly overcame it. After all, it wasn't like he had a good life in there. He had a new destiny laid in front of him. Back in Berk, everyone was trying to get over what had happened that day. As for Astrid, she secretly went to the cove. She didn't wanted to talk with her friends with what happened today. When she reached the cove, she looked around. A part of her hoped that Hiccup might still be here. But she was wrong. She walked around and finally sat on a rock beside the pond. She knew it wouldn't be the last time she saw him. She will see him, she will find him no matter what. "I will find you, Hiccup. I promise," she said with determination. Chapter 2, The Midnight Intruder. Chapter text. It had been several weeks after Hiccup left. The villagers didn't bother to send a search party. Because according to them the effort isn't worth it for a runaway treacherous runt. Everything in the village was almost like as it used to be. The dragon training was called off for some time. It was midnight and most of the villagers were sleeping. There weren't any dragon raids for weeks. Some night guards were keeping a watch for any incoming attack. There was no indication of an attack, so they had let their guards down a bit. But suddenly they heard an extremely familiar screech, followed by an explosion. The night guards turned their attention towards the place where the explosion happened. It was the kill ring. They could even see fire in there. The night guards rang the alarm bells to wake up and alert the sleeping villagers, although most of them were already awake because of the explosion. The Vikings, including the teens, quickly armed themselves and ran out of their houses towards the kill ring. The teens were the first to reach there. They entered the kill ring as the other villagers surrounded it. When they entered the kill ring they saw a night fury shooting at the door of the cages. But it wasn't the only thing. There was a strange man standing in the middle of the kill ring. He wasn't much tall and was probably a teen. He was wearing a leather cloak, and the hood of the cloak was covering his head. The man turned around along with the night fury. The teens noticed that man was wearing a grey tunic along with a weird belt. The part of his face below his eyes was covered with a scarf. He didn't had any weapons. But Astrid could notice the bright green eyes hidden under the hood. The stranger gestured the night fury to continue and turned to face the Vikings inside the kill ring. "Ha! Don't worry, babe. I got this," Snotlout told Astrid, flexing his arms. He charged at the man with his mace and a yell. When he was close enough, Snotlout swung his mace at the stranger. But the stranger bent backwards and dodged the incoming attack. Snotlout tried to hit again, but the stranger caught his arm in midway. His grip was so strong that Snotlout wasn't able to free his arm. He looked at the man with shock and fear. Just then the stranger punched him in his face, which dropped him on the ground a few feet away from him. Seeing this, the twins ran towards the man with their spears. The stranger noticed Snotlout's mace, which was lying beside his feet. He picks it up with his right foot and launched it in the air and kicked it so hard that the mace went flying like a hay ball, and with perfect accuracy it hit Tough Nut in his face. Tough Nut dropped on the ground, but Rough Nut ran towards the stranger and lunged at him, trying to stab him with her spear. The man stepped aside to avoid the attack. Rough Nut swung her spear like a staff to hit the stranger, but he blocked the attack with his left arm. He quickly grabbed the spear and pulled it hard. Rough Nut lost her grip on the spear and stumbled forward, but managed to stay on her feet. But the stranger hit her in her stomach with the end of the spear. The hit knocked the air out of her lungs. She bent forward and wrapped her arms around her stomach to cope with the pain. But it turned out to be a big mistake, as the stranger hit her in the head with the base of the spear, which knocked her out. Another Viking charged at him with his axe. The man threw the spear near the incoming Viking's feet. The Viking tripped on it and fell on the ground. Just then, with a loud explosion, the doors of the cages shattered and the dragons came out of their cages. The Vikings inside the kill ring immediately left with a scream. One of them cut the chain which was keeping the entrance of the kill ring open. The heavy door dropped behind them as they left. The others stayed around the kill ring, hoping that it would be enough to stop the dragons. Inside the kill ring, the stranger and the night fury were surrounded by the other dragons. The dragons growled at them aggressively, especially the monstrous nightmare. But they all went silent as the night fury let out a mighty roar. The stranger walked towards the monstrous nightmare and slowly touched its snout. The nightmare hummed in a low voice, and soon relaxed under his touch. The other dragons started surround him in hopes to receive the same treatment. The stranger left the monstrous nightmare and walked over to his left, where a deadly Nadder was standing beside a Gronkle. He touched the Nadder's snout with his left hand and the Gronkle's snout with his right hand. They also hummed and relaxed under his touch. He then diverted his attention to the hideous Zippelback. He cautiously walked towards the two-headed dragon with his hands in the air. The Zippelback lowered both of its heads and the stranger touched their snouts. A few moments later the stranger left them and took a few steps backwards. He looked at the dragons who were now standing in front of him. He could see the trust in their eyes. The night fury let out a low growl. The stranger looked back at the night fury and nodded. He then mounted the night fury's back. The night fury let out a series of growls and clicks. It looked like it was communicating with the other dragons. Then it shot upwards towards the sky with the stranger on its back. The other dragons soon followed them. The Vikings tried to shoot them down, but it was unsuccessful as the stranger and the dragons easily avoided the projectiles they threw and escaped towards the horizon. Chapter 3, 5 years later. Chapter text. It's been 5 years since Hiccup ran away with his Night Fury. Many believe that he is dead, because according to them Hiccup isn't strong enough to survive out there alone and that Night Fury must have eaten him. There was another reason for them to believe it. 4 years ago, some fishermen found a piece of cloth floating in the sea. When they collected it, it turned out to be a ripped and teared tunic. It was the very same tunic Hiccup had wore the day he ran away. There was blood stains on the piece of clothing. It lead many to believe Hiccup is killed by the Night Fury or some other beast. Many except Astrid. She knew that Hiccup is alive and out there and one day they will meet again. She had traveled to many islands under the excuse of trying to find other inhabitable islands or tribes to trade with. She had found many small islands around Berk, even reached for the tribes known to Berk. But Hiccup wasn't in any of them. She even talked with trader Johan, but he didn't knew where Hiccup was either. 4 years ago the dragon raids also stopped. The Vikings had also managed to safely make their way into Helheim's Gate that year. Surprisingly enough, no dragon attacked them during their journey. When they reached inside they couldn't find a single dragon. Except there was a carcass of a giant dragon-like creature. It was burnt and badly destroyed. It looked like it had exploded. There hardly has been any dragon raid since then. Even if a raid did occur it would end soon with any casualties in both sides. The inhabitants of Berk have also heard story of a mysterious man from trader Johan. According to those stories, this man is a lone warrior. A stranger to the world. This man could control the dragons. The dragons listened to him like he is their king. Of course nobody first believed those stories. They just laughed it off. But they started hearing stories and rumors about this mysterious man from other travelers from other tribes and other traders. And slowly everyone came to believe about him. They had heard how he saves people from dragons, or how he destroys the dragon hunters. Some stories showed him as a savior, while the other stories showed him as a ruthless destroyer. People called him by many names. The Savior, the Demon, the Endbringer, the Misjudged Angel, Dragon Lord, Dragon King, Lord Fury. But most famous of them was Knight Rider. Some believed he is a savior who will save the humanity. Some believed that he is the enemy of humanity and will bring Ragnarok on Midgard. No one has ever seen his face. No one has ever defeated him in a battle. Those who have fought against him say that he is undefeatable. Back on Berk many things have changed. Mainly the teens. Snotlout has grown a bit in height, but is still shortest in the group. Stoic had tried to train him as the next chief of Berk, but ended in vain, as Snotlout was just too stupid and had too big ego. So Stoic discarded him as the next chief. Snotlout still had a crush on Astrid and had tried to flirt with her and seduce her. But every attempt ended with him waking up in Gothai's hut. Astrid herself has changed. She had replaced her blue t-shirt with a red one. She has become a shield maiden and is one of Berk's best warrior. She also has grown more beautiful. She was considered to be the most beautiful girl on Berk. As for Fishlegs, he is still the same big guy he was. Because of his knowledge and wisdom, he was hired as an accountant. His work is to keep track of the expenses made in trading with other tribes. The twins have also become very well-known warriors of Berk. But they still had a knack for mischief. They occasionally caused mayhem in Berk. Gobber has grown old in past 5 years. Being short of one hand and a leg, it was hard for him to keep up with the demands of the villagers. He did got a new apprentice, but he wasn't as hard-working as Hiccup. Thank gods that the dragon raids have stopped, or else it would have been impossible for him to do his job. During past 5 years, Berk has started to overpopulate. It was also slowly starting to turn uninhabitable. Stoic had made a decision to leave Berk. He had arranged a team which includes him, Gobber, some of Berk's finest warriors, Astrid and her friends. They will go out there and find another inhabitable island where they can build a new Berk. The preparations were done and today was the day they will leave. The team was standing on the dock. Can you handle it? Stoic asked Spitlout. I am. Don't worry, Chief. I will keep them safe. Spitlout replied. Good. We will try to return soon. Stoic said and walked away as Spitlout wished him good luck. The team got on the ship and started sailing towards the horizon. Chapter 4, New Lands. Chapter text. It's been 2 months since they began their journey. Astrid had been leading them through the journey because of her experience in sailing and exploring. They did found some small islands, but those islands were too small to build a new Berk in there. There wasn't even enough resources which they could use to improve their life back on Berk. So they kept traveling. Their life during the travel wasn't easy. Some of them were suffering seasickness. Especially Snotlout. It was funny to see the self-proclaimed perfect Viking losing his balance and puking like he was drunk. The others who were stronger were barely fine. They were also running out of supplies. Although they could still fish if they needed more food, but collecting drinking water would be a problem. If they couldn't find a new island in 1 week, they would have to return back to Berk. The All-Father must be on their side, because during their whole journey they had to face almost no dragons. During their journey they had to face a storm, but luckily everyone was safe. But the storm changed their travel route. Some of the crew were already losing their hopes. They just wanted to go back home and reunite with their families and friends. Stoic himself felt like they should return and try again later with more preparations. Chief, look! Astrid exclaimed, pointing towards something. Stoic was on the deck, checking on his men. Hearing Astrid, he approached her. She was holding a spyglass in her right hand while eagerly pointing towards something with her left. Stoic looked at the direction she was pointing at, and when he saw it he beamed with happiness. Just a mile away there was an island, a big one. Stoic took the spyglass from Astrid and watched the island through it. It's as big, if not bigger than Berk. With one look at it, Stoic could tell it is ripe with resources. The crew present on the deck also saw the island and cheered with happiness and delight. Looks like we have found our new home. Stoic told his fellow Vikings with a laugh. They laughed at this too. Even Astrid chuckled. Looks like that storm was a blessing in disguise. Tough Nut said, leaning on the mast. Yeah, the gods are on our side. Rough Nut said. Fishlegs pulled out his own spyglass and calculated the distance between them and the island. With this speed, I think we will be able to reach there in 2 hours. Fishlegs told them. Then what are we waiting for? Snotlout managed to say before he leaned out of the ship and puked again. Everyone turned away from him in disgust. Set sail for that island, Astrid. Stoic ordered. Aye, Chief. Astrid said and went away to do her job. Soon they reached their destination. The island was bigger than Stoic thought. They descended the ship as it touched the shore. Snotlout fell on his knees and started to kiss the shore as he chanted finally, "Land, land, lovely beautiful land." Suddenly some sand entered his mouth and Snotlout jumped on his feet, spitting and trying to wipe the sand off from his tongue. Some Vikings smirked at this as the others chuckled. The twins were holding on to each other as they laughed at this. Snotlout grumbled in anger and embarrassment. Enough! Stoic exclaimed, making them all stop. Now, we need to check the island to see what resources we can find here and then send some men back at Berk to lead the rest of our people here. Stoic stated and continued as the others nodded, so half of you will stay here and make a camp and do any necessary repairs on the ship. Gobber will be in charge of y'all. The Vikings nodded. And the rest, you will come with me. We will explore as much of this island we can and then we will find a high ground and make a map of this place. Stoic said as the Vikings nodded again. Stoic sorted out the Vikings and made a team to go with him as the others will stay behind to guard the ship. Snotlout and Fishlegs were chosen to stay with Gobber. Snotlout groaned and protested against it, but one glare from Stoic made him shut his mouth. Some of the Vikings snickered at this. The team which was supposed to go with Stoic also included Astrid, Tough Nut and Rough Nut. Good luck on your expedition, Gobber said. Stoic nodded and said, keep an eye on Snotlout. We will return as soon as possible. And proceeded to leave with his team following him. They hardly managed to take a few steps when they heard a loud roar of a dragon. This made them stop in their tracks. Some of them were shocked and stunned. Just then the dragons fell from the sky and landed a few feet in front of them. Some dragons came out of the jungle and joined their fellows. Those dragons surrounded them. Those dragons were mostly monstrous nightmares and deadly nadders. There were some timberjacks too. The Vikings pulled out their weapons but soon realized that the odds weren't in their favor. They were outnumbered, the dragons had surrounded them and were too far for them to reach without being noticed. They had left their long-range weapons back in the ship. The dragons were prepared to attack. They could see the nadders had their spikes ready to shoot and the fire glowing in Nightmare's throat and mouth. Just one wrong move and they would end up dead. The dragons could finish them if they wanted, but it was like they were waiting for some kind of command. "What's going on?" Tough Nut asked in a near whisper-like voice. "Shush." Astrid shushed him. Just then they heard the unforgettable screech of a Night Fury. "Night Fury! Get down!" Many of the Vikings yelled and ducked. The Night Fury landed in front of the dragons, facing the Vikings. The sight of the Night Fury was enough to make the Vikings nearly faint. But what scared them more was the figure sitting on the back of the Night Fury. It was a man. The man descended from the back of the Night Fury and stood a feet in front of the dragon. Some of the Vikings began to shake as they realized that who the person in front of them was. It was the Night Rider. Chapter 5, Duel. Chapter text. The fear among the Vikings slowly subdued as they noticed Night Rider's figure. He was quite thin and small compared to an average Viking. He would be hardly 6 feet 2 inches tall. He was wearing a black leather armor with a hooded cloak. The texture of the cloak resembled the scales of a Night Fury. He was wearing a masked helmet with the hood pulled over his head. A staff was strapped on his back. /N The armor of Night Rider looks like Hiccup's armor from HTTYD2, but it's completely black in color and the helmet is same as shown in HTTYD2 but it doesn't have the spikes. "Who are you?" the man asked in a deep voice. Stoic stepped forward and said, "I am Stoic the Vast Haddock, chief of the Hairy Hooligan tribe." The Vikings felt more confident as their fear vanished when they saw their chief standing up against the Night Rider. "I suppose you are Night Rider?" Stoic scoffed. "Yes, I am," Night Rider said. "I have heard many stories about you," Stoic said as he looked at the Dragon Rider and continued, "but now it feels like those were just stories." The Vikings laughed at this. Snotlout, Tough Nut and Rough Nut were the loudest. The dragons were clearly not amused at this. They were about to attack but Night Rider stopped them with a hand gesture. "Now that we are done with introduction, I would like you to leave my island," he said. "We don't take orders from you." Snotlout spat as he stepped forward. The dragons growled but Night Rider stopped them again. "I will not ask again. Leave," Night Rider said as the Night Fury roared. "Stoic, it might be a wise choice. I mean, look at him, he got an entire battalion of dragons." Gobber told his friend, but Stoic wasn't having any of it. "We are Vikings. We have faced things worse than a twig and a group of dragons. We aren't afraid of you," Stoic proclaimed. Behind him the Vikings cheered in agreement. Night Rider pulled out his staff and got into a battle stance along with the dragons. The Vikings got nervous at this and gripped their weapons tighter. "Look, I don't like bloodshed," Night Rider said as he put off of his stance and struck the ground with his staff. The staff stood tall as its one end was buried in the ground as Night Rider walked a few steps away from it. The dragons also put off their stance and they backed away, even the Night Fury. "So why not we get done with this with as less bloodshed as possible?" Night Rider said and continued, "I see you have some very strong warriors among yourselves." He gestured at the Vikings and continued, "I challenge your men in a duel, send your best warriors, as many as you want, you may use whatever weapon you wish. If any of your men manages to defeat me I will leave this island with my dragons. But if you lose, you will leave this island and never come back." The Vikings gasped and whispered among themselves as they heard the proclamation of Night Rider. Stoic was shocked to see that a weakling like him is challenging them for a duel. "Huh? A weakling like you are challenging us for a duel?" Stoic scoffed and continued, "You might end up using one of your dragons. Don't worry about that. The dragons won't interfere in the duel. You have my words. Knight Rider said, and the dragons, including the Night Fury, backed away more, leaving a lot of ground for the Vikings and Knight Rider to fight. Someone like you, will be trying to fight us Vikings. I can defeat you in less than a moment. Snotlout said. Knight Rider crossed his arms behind his back and said, many said that to me before. Do we have a deal? Stoic suddenly asked. Stoic. What are you doing? Gobber asked him, but Stoic ignored Gobber and asked again, do we have a deal? Yes. Knight Rider calmly said. Stoic, are you out your Odin forsaken mind? Gobber nearly yelled. Gobber, think about this. This island is big and resourceful. We can build a new burg here, and for that we only have to defeat him. Stoic told his friend. But he is Knight Rider. Gobber nearly yelled, haven't you heard all the stories of what he can do? Stoic sighed and said, Gobber, look at the situation. He is just a twig against a whole group of big strong Vikings. The odds are in our favor now. Stoic, this can be a mistake. Gobber warned. I don't have time for this, Gobber. Stoic said and walked away from his friend. Snotlout. You will go first. Stoic ordered his nephew. Snotlout grinned at that. Just watch, babe. I am beat this so-called Dragon Lord so hard, that he will beg me for mercy. Snotlout told Astrid, to the much annoyance of Astrid, and charged at the Dragon Rider with his mace. Knight Rider calmly stood there as he saw his opponent coming closer to him. Snotlout swung his mace at Knight Rider as he got close enough. But to his surprise, Knight Rider caught the mace in midway with his right hand. Before Snotlout could even react, Knight Rider struck Snotlout's wrist with his left hand, forcing Snotlout to let go of the mace. Knight Rider quickly threw the mace away and jabbed Snotlout across his face with his right hand. Before Snotlout could recover from the first hit, he got jabbed in the chest by the Knight Rider. Knight Rider then threw a right hook at him, which hit Snotlout in the face. Then Knight Rider threw an uppercut with his left arm at Snotlout. As he got hit in the jaw again, Snotlout stumbled backwards and fell on his back. Anyone else? Knight Rider asked as he looked at the Vikings. Stoic was shocked to see a weakling like him defeat Snotlout. But then Snotlout wasn't much good fighter anyway. Rough nut, tough nut. Stoic proclaimed. The Viking twins charged at Knight Rider without any hesitation. Knight Rider calmly walked towards them. When they got close enough, Rough Nut tried to attack him. But to her surprise, Knight Rider did a spinning hook kick, which hit her in her stomach. Rough Nut got thrown back on the ground because of the impact, where she curled into a ball to cope with the pain. Tough Nut saw his sister falling and then charged at Knight Rider with rage. He tried to stab Knight Rider with his spear, but Knight Rider stepped aside and caught it with his left hand. He then curled his right hand's fingers into a claw and struck Tough Nut across his face. Tough Nut fell on the ground with 3 bleeding scratches on his left cheek. He looked up only to see Knight Rider standing over him. He slammed his foot down on Tough Nut's face and knocked him out. Saying Stoic was shocked is an understatement. Tough Nut and Rough Nut were one of their best. Seeing them getting beaten by Knight Rider was really shocking. A Viking charged at Knight Rider with his axe. Knight Rider walked towards that Viking. Even though he was calm and relaxed, they could notice the aggressiveness in Knight Rider's movements. The Viking swung his axe on him, but Knight Rider stepped aside and dodged it. He interlocked his hands and swung it at the Viking. The Viking got hit in the face and dropped on his back. Before he could even get up, Knight Rider crouched on him and punched his face several times, knocking him out. He then got up and walked towards the group as 2 more Vikings ran towards him. Knight Rider ran towards them too and round into the Viking closer to him, and to others' shock and amazement, he picked up that guy in the air and threw him behind his back. He then dodged the other Viking's attack and punched him in the face. He then kicked that guy behind his knee, making him drop on his knee. Then punched that guy in his face, dropping him on the ground. That's all you got? I can do this all day. Knight Rider proclaimed. Stoic had enough of all this. This time he himself went to fight Knight Rider. He threw punch at Knight Rider, which he dodged. Knight Rider punched him in the stomach. Stoic was taken aback by how strong that punch was. It felt like a dragon had hit him. This guy is stronger than I thought. Stoic thought. Knight Rider tried to punch him again, but Stoic caught his arm. Stoic didn't waste another moment and quickly grabbed Knight Rider's throat with his other hand and picked him up and slammed him on the ground. Knight Rider gave a muffled yelp and punched his nose, followed with a punch in the jaw. Both of the attacks were enough to weaken Stoic. Knight Rider finally push-kicked Stoic, throwing him from himself. Knight Rider got back on his feet along with Stoic. He charged at Stoic and threw a punch at him. Stoic dodged it and punched him in his face. Knight Rider stumbled a bit but managed to stay on his feet. Stoic proceeded to slam his fist on him, but Knight Rider blocked it with his arms. He then quickly punched Stoic in his throat. Stoic stumbled back in pain. In front of him Knight Rider had taken a battle stance. Stoic pulled out his axe and charged at his opponent. He swung his axe at the Knight Rider. Knight Rider managed to dodge it, but he wasn't fast enough. The axe cut through his armor, leaving a long, bleeding cut on Knight Rider's side. That wound would have made anyone crying in pain, but Knight Rider held it in. The dragons seemed concerned and they were going to do something, but a light growl from the Night Fury stopped them. Stoic picked up Knight Rider by his throat and threw him away. Knight Rider dropped close to his staff. He slowly stood up and noticed it. He quickly reached for it and picked it up. He turned around to face Stoic. His previous opponents were already conscious again and they went back to the group as they saw Stoic himself fighting the Knight Rider. "Give up. You can't win against me," Stoic yelled. "Many said that before," Knight Rider cockily said and charged at Stoic. Stoic tried to hit him with his axe again, but Knight Rider blocked it with his staff. He then pulled his staff, making Stoic lose his grip on the axe, which was interlocked with the staff. The axe fell on the ground as Knight Rider hit Stoic in his face with the staff. He pocked Stoic, just below his chest with one end of his staff and then hit him in the face again. Stoic stumbled back at this assault. Knight Rider grabbed the middle of his staff with both hands and twisted it. The staff divided in two batons as Knight Rider got in a battle stance. Before Stoic could think, Knight Rider attacked him, hitting multiple weak points and pressure points on his body with his batons. Stoic dropped on the ground in pain. He tried to get up, but Knight Rider kicked him in the face, dropping him on the ground. The Vikings gasped as they saw the once thought weakling defeating their chief. "Anyone else wants to try?" Knight Rider proclaimed. No one dared to raise their voice as they have now seen what the Knight Rider can do. Some of them were even shivering at the thought of fighting him. "Ha! Thought so," Knight Rider said. He then flipped Stoic over, so Stoic was lying on his back. He pointed his baton at Stoic and said, "Now listen to me, Chief Stoic, I have defeated you and many of your warriors. And none of your men wants to fight. So I would like you to complete promise and leave my island." The coldness in those words were enough to convince Stoic not to try any moves. He tried to get up and was surprised when Knight Rider offered him a hand. Stoic hesitantly took it and he helped Stoic to get up. Stoic slowly walked away from him as he felt some kind of familiarity from this man. No one protested as Stoic gathered his men and left with them on the ship. Chapter 6, Suspicion. Chapter text. Astrid was lying on her berth in her room. The weather outside was rough and it was slightly raining. She was deeply lost in her thoughts. She couldn't forget the events which happened just a few hours ago. To be honest, she was shocked when she saw Knight Rider defeating some of their best warriors and their chief. She wasn't expecting him to be this dangerous. But something about him felt awfully familiar. Before the fight, while others were busy trying to insult Knight Rider, she was looking at him, trying to find details. Just then she noticed his eyes. She felt an odd familiarity when she looked at those forest green eyes. She felt like she has seen them before. She sat up on her berth, trying to remember all the details. "Astrid, you okay?" her roommate Rufnut asked while lying on her berth on the other side of the room. "Yeah, I am just thinking," Astrid replied as she rubbed her temple with her left hand. "Thinking about what?" Rufnut curiously asked as she looked at her friend. "About all that happened today," Astrid said. "Aha. I can understand. I mean, it's not every day you see Chief Stoic getting his backside kicked." Rough Nut said while looking at the ceiling. Not that. Something about Knight Rider feels awfully familiar. Astrid said. What do you mean? Rough Nut asked, sitting up on her berth. It's. I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like I know who he is. You know who he is? Astrid, it's Knight Rider we are talking about. Stop joking. I am not joking, Ruff. I need to talk to Stoic. Astrid said and left the room. Rough Nut just watched her with wide eyes as she left the room. Astrid went to the deck and saw Stoic talking with Gobber there. Astrid approached them and asked, Chief, may I talk to you? Stoic looked at her and asked, what is it, Astrid? Chief, I want to go back to that island. Astrid said. You what? Stoic nearly yelled. I want to go back to that island. There are things that I need to know. Astrid sheepishly said. Astrid, I can't risk your life by sending you there, so that you can just fulfill your curiosity. Stoic said, pinching the bridge of his nose. But Chief, look at the bright side, maybe I will be able to find some kind of weakness of Knight Rider, or anything that might be useful. Astrid said, trying to convince Stoic. This is way too risky, Astrid. There's a chance you might not return. But Stoic, you have seen that he isn't like what the stories say about him. He isn't that violent. Maybe I can cook up some convincing story and make him keep me as a prisoner. I will somehow manage to find a way to get out of my captivity and gather information on him, and then later you can easily come back with a whole armada and demand him to let me go. I am pretty sure he will fulfill that demand because he doesn't want people on his island. And when he sends me back, I will give you all the information I have gathered. Astrid explained in hopes to convince Stoic. It seemed to work as Stoic started rubbing his chin. He normally does that when he is in deep thought. That sounds reasonable. You may go back there. Stoic said. Astrid was mentally cheering as he said that. But. Stoic said, making Astrid look at him with curiosity, you are going there with Rough Nut, Tough Nut, Fishlegs and Snotlout. Stoic finished. But, why, Chief? Astrid asked. You have seen how dangerous he is. I am not risking to send you there alone. And they might be able to back you up somehow. Stoic firmly said, leaving no place for argument. Okay, Chief. Astrid said. Good. I will prepare a boat for you. Stoic said and left with Gobber following him. Astrid let out a sigh of relief and went to her room to take some necessary items. A few minutes later. Astrid and her friends have gathered on the deck. Stoic has spared them a lifeboat. Fishlegs was nervous about this, while Rough Nut and Tough Nut were excited to see what's going to happen. As for Snotlout, he was still bragging how he is going to beat the Knight Rider. May the All-Father look after you on your journey. Stoic told Astrid. Astrid nodded and hopped on the lifeboat, which was hanging beside the deck, followed by her friends. Cut the rope. Stoic ordered. Two Vikings came forward with their axes in their hands as Astrid and her friends held onto the boat with a tight grip. In one swing they cut the ropes which were holding the lifeboat. Snotlout and Fishlegs screamed in fear as the lifeboat dropped in the sea. Astrid and her friends soon picked up their oars and started rowing. The rough weather, rain and sea waves going at the opposite direction were making it harder for them. At this rate we won't be able to reach there before tomorrow. Fishlegs said in a pained voice as he struggled to row in the rough weather. Well, we don't have much of a choice. Do we? Astrid said and focused back on rowing. In her mind she was thinking what they will do when they will reach that island. I will get my answers. No matter what. She thought with determination as she looked at the direction that island was. Chapter 7, Found Him. Chapter text. Astrid and her friends have been rowing all night. It's almost afternoon. The rough weather made their journey longer than they expected. Huff. Finally we are here. Snotlout said as he stepped out of the boat. All the rowing made him extremely tired. Let's go before a dragon spots us. Astrid told them and walked towards the forest near the shore. Snotlout, Tough Nut and Rough Nut groaned and Fishlegs' shoulders slumped in disappointment. But soon they followed after her. The forest was quite dense. They were having hard time walking through it. The occasional roars of dragons made the situation only worse. But they continued their journey. They occasionally found places in the forest where the trees were less dense. There were remains of chopped off trees and tree trunks. It looked like someone was cutting trees from there. They inspected the cuts on the trees. While most of the cuts were made by an axe, others were result of getting clawed by dragons. Well, it confirms that Knight Rider really does live here. Rough Nut said as she kicked a pebble. Tough Nut, Snotlout and Fishlegs were looking around, not too far from the group. Astrid was crouching in front of a cut tree trunk. She gently touched a long cut on the tree trunk and traced her finger over it. Which I believe is both a good and a bad news. Astrid said, standing up. Why? Rough Nut asked with a dumb expression. Good, because we now know the location of Knight Rider and we won't have to search for more islands to learn where he lives. Bad, because it means he has a whole battalion of dragons in here with him. Astrid explained. Come on, we gotta find him before he finds us. Astrid said and headed inside the forest again, followed by her friends. Some time later, Astrid and her friends were walking through the forest when they suddenly heard a loud thump. They all got into a battle stance and Fishlegs Higgs himself, whimpering. They heard the thump again and again. Astrid knew that sound all too well. Someone is cutting trees. She thought. Stay here, guys. Astrid told them and went away to investigate the sound. After walking for some time, she found an open area. She hid behind a tree and peeked out of it. A few meters away from her, Knight Rider was cutting a tree. He was wearing a different armor, which was similar to the one he was wearing yesterday. But it was brown in color. He was still wearing his helmet. The trunk is around 3 feet thick. Astrid watched in amazement as Knight Rider brought down axe on the trunk and the tree fell on ground. Knight Rider emblemed his axe in the trunk of the fallen tree and stood there with his hands on his hips. Astrid slowly came out of her hiding spot and made her way towards Knight Rider. When she was close enough, she pulled out her axe, which was strapped on her back. Then without a sound she threw her axe towards Knight Rider with all the strength she could muster. The axe was going to hit Knight Rider, but he bent on his left side. The axe flew past him, but he caught it in midair. He turned around and faced Astrid. That wasn't nice, he said, and threw that axe. The axe dropped near Astrid's feet. She looked at it and looked back at Knight Rider. Try again, he said in an instructing manner. Astrid picked up her axe and charged at Knight Rider with a yell. She swung her axe at him, but he dodged it. She tried to hit him again, but he dodged again. She kept swinging her axe at him, but he kept dodging. Finally Knight Rider caught her axe with his right hand when she tried to hit him again. He pushed it away and rammed into Astrid, hitting her with his right shoulder. She stumbled back and dropped on the ground. She quickly got back on her feet and charged at Knight Rider. She swung her axe at him again, but she missed him and hit a tree instead. Her axe was stuck in its trunk. Before she could pull it out, Knight Rider pushed her away from it. She tried to fight him hand to hand, but it turned out useless because he was blocking and deflecting all her attacks. She became extremely tired, but Knight Rider looked like he can continue this for hours. Suddenly her friends came out of hiding. They surrounded Knight Rider, pointing their weapons at him. Looks like we got the rat trapped, Snotlout proudly proclaimed. Oh, do you? Knight Rider said. Just then they heard a loud screech and the Night Fury dropped between them, growling at Astrid and her friends. They backed away in fright, but some other dragons came out of the forest and surrounded them. You Burkians thought, you lot can come in my island and roam in this forest without me knowing anything about it, Knight Rider said. Astrid and her friends looked around. The dragons were ready to attack them. The Night Fury slowly walked towards them. Toothless, Knight Rider shouted, making the Night Fury stop. Something clicked in Astrid's mind as she saw Knight Rider stopping that Night Fury. She now knew who was behind that mask. Now tell me, why you guys came here? When I had made this clear that I don't want any of you guys on my island, Knight Rider growled. Snotlout, Fishlegs, Rough Nut and Tough Nut backed away, leaving Astrid in front of them. Traitors, Astrid mumbled under her breath. She then looked at Knight Rider, and said, I came here to confirm my suspicion. And what are those suspicion? Knight Rider asked. Astrid took a deep breath and said in a calm tone, I believe I know who you are. Knight Rider scoffed and turned away, shaking his head. There is only one person in the whole archipelago who has green eyes, auburn hair, scrawny frame and rides a Night Fury and calls him Toothless. Astrid said. Knight Rider turned towards her. She could see the shock in his eyes. Even though he was wearing his helmet, she could see that his eyes were wide, through the eye holes. Hiccup. She proclaimed with a smirk. Her friends looked at Knight Rider with shock. They couldn't believe that the man standing in front of them was the supposedly dead heir of Berk. Knight Rider brought his hands up and removed the helmet from his head, revealing his handsome face. Even though there were changes, but they could recognize it actually was Hiccup. Astrid. He said with a smile. Astrid's smirk turned into a smile. So it really is you. She said. Hiccup did a hand gesture and the dragons surrounding them left. Even the Night Fury stopped growling. Come with me. Hiccup said and picked up his own axe and picked up a big satchel which was lying near a tree and headed out of the forest with Toothless. Astrid and her friends soon followed after him. Chapter 8, Questions. Chapter Text. Hiccup and Toothless soon got out of the forest. They started walking on a dirt path leading him towards the center of the island. Behind them Astrid and her friends soon caught up. Hey, you can't just leave us after telling us you are Hiccup. Our Hiccup. Tough Nut yelled at him. Yeah. We have some questions. Like where were you? What have you been doing? Rough Nut asked, but didn't get any answer from Hiccup. Everyone back at Berk thought that you're dead, Hiccup. Do you have any idea what I have done only to find you? Astrid breathlessly said as she and her friends were having trouble keeping up with the Dragon Rider. As for Hiccup, he stayed silent during the whole thing. Astrid proceeded to say something but stopped in her tracks along with her friends. There was a group of dragons standing a few meters away from them. The dragons were aggressively growling and started walking towards Astrid and her friends. But before anything bad happened, Hiccup stepped between the dragons and Astrid. The dragons came to a halt at that. An adder growled and crooned like it was talking. They are friends. Hiccup said. This made the dragons stop growling. They apologetically crooned and flew away. Sorry about that. They aren't used to seeing new people on the island. Hiccup told the gang and started walking again, followed by Toothless and the gang. After a few minutes of walking they reached a place which looked like a crossroads in the middle of a small town. There were dragons, who were freely roaming around. Some looked at Astrid and her friends suspiciously but didn't mind them. There were many varieties of dragons. Nadders, nightmares, gronkles, ziplybacks. Even some extremely rare dragons like rumblehorns, hobblegrunts, etc. The gang was in complete awe as they watched everything. So this is what you've been doing for the past 5 years? Astrid said in awe as she looked back at Hiccup. Hiccup smiled and nodded. Take this path. It would lead you to my house. It has multiple rooms, so I hope you won't have any problem getting settled. Hiccup said, pointing towards a dirt path. He then whistled in a special tune. A few terrible terrors came flying and hovered in front of Hiccup. Hiccup let out some low growls and clicks and the terrors nodded. They will help you get settled. Just don't touch anything. And don't provoke the dragons. I will be in the forge. It's not far from here. If you need me you can come there. The terrors will show you the way. Hiccup told the gang as he turned back towards them and then left with Toothless. Astrid and her friends were too shocked to comprehend what just happened. They broke out of their trance when the terrors started chirping loudly. Astrid and her friends soon walked down the dirt path and after a few minutes they reached their destination. Their jaws dropped when they saw Hiccup's house. It was a 2-story mansion, built out of wood and stone. It was decorated with plants and the walls were painted with beautiful designs. They looked at the mansion in awe as they entered it. Damn! My house looks like a hut compared to this. Snotlout said as they entered the living room. The terrors split up and guided them towards their rooms. Rough Nut and Tough Nut had to share one room, while others got their own separate rooms. The rooms were quite big. Each room had a bed, a cupboard filled with some towels and some other essential stuff, a writing desk along with a chair and a shelf containing some books. In the case of the Thorsten twins, they had 2 beds in their room. Astrid looked out of the window in her room and saw the beautiful view outside. The mansion was on high ground near a mountain. There was a small stream flowing behind the mansion. The scenery was beautiful. Astrid turned towards the door of her room when she heard a light banging on the door. She walked over to the door and opened it. On the other side of the door there were 2 terrible terrors who were carrying a double-headed battle axe. They flew inside the room and dropped it on the desk. Astrid walked over to the desk and checked the axe. It was hers. "Thank you," she told the terrors. The terrors happily chirped and left. After a few minutes of settling down, they left the mansion to look for Hiccup. "So where shall we find Hiccup?" Tough Nut asked. "He said he was in the forge and it's not far from his house." Astrid replied. "Okay, but where is this forge?" "It can be anywhere." Snotlout asked, air quoting the word forge. Astrid noticed some terrors flying nearby. She walked over to them. "Hey, do you know where the forge is?" Astrid asked them. Astrid, this stupid. They are dragons. They can't understand you, babe. Snotlout said. Astrid glared at the raven-haired Viking. Snotlout whimpered under her glare. Astrid let out a frustrated sigh and returned her attention towards the terrors. "I need to see Hiccup," Astrid told them. The terrors peeked up when she mentioned Hiccup. They excitedly nodded and gestured her to follow them. Astrid obeyed and followed the flying terrible terrors as they led her towards Hiccup. Her friends followed after her. After a minute or 2 of walking they finally found the forge. It was a big square-shaped building. The front of the building only consisted of a waist-long stone wall with a wooden fence door on the right side, which separated the forge from the outside world. There was a chimney on the roof which was releasing black smoke. The gang could hear the sound of something heavy hitting metal from inside the forge. They entered the building. The environment inside the forge was quite hot. The whole building was supported by multiple big wooden pillars. There were shelves containing various equipment, tables filled with designs and notes. There were other shelves and cupboards containing various items like coal, scrap metal, wood, etc. On the other side of the room there was a big furnace beside a fire pit. Hiccup was standing near the fire pit. His back was facing them. He had an anvil in front of him. He was banging a red-hot sword into the right shape with a hammer. The girls blushed and the males gaped as they saw Hiccup. Hiccup was shirtless and covered in sweat. They could easily see his toned back and muscular arms. He also had a Night Fury tattoo on his back. The wings of the Night Fury were reaching up to his shoulder blades while the tail reached to the middle of his lower back. He wasn't too buffy but he was toned. Bandages were wrapped around his sides and right shoulder. Rough Nut was drooling over Hiccup as she stared at his working figure. As for Astrid, she was madly blushing as she imagined all the stuff she could do with Hiccup. Hiccup sensed their presence and turned to face them. The girls blushed even more when they saw Hiccup from the front. He had 6-pack abs and V-shaped chest. He had ring-shaped tattoos on his left bicep, the part of his right arm from shoulder to elbow was covered in tattoos. Both of his arms had bindings wrapped around them, which covered his wrists, and 2/3 of his arms. "Oh. I didn't notice you there," Hiccup said as he took a piece of cloth and wiped away some of the sweat from his body and walked over to them. "So, you guys are comfortable here?" Hiccup asked them. "Yeah. The rooms you provided us were quite comfortable," Astrid said, trying not to stutter or blush. She noticed that the tattoo on Hiccup's left bicep included multiple ancient Nordic runes and quotes, while the tattoo on his right arm included designs of different dragons. "Let me guess, you have some questions," Hiccup said. "Yeah. I do," Astrid admitted. "So what do you want to know?" Hiccup asked. "Well, first, what have you been doing for the past 5 years? We have heard rumors and stories about you," Astrid asked. "Well, in short, I have been trying to make peace between humans and dragons," Hiccup said. "By massacring people." Snotlout spat. Hiccup looked at him angrily and said, by stopping the fights between dragons and Viking tribes. The only people I ever killed were those filthy dragon hunters. Wait, dragon hunters? Fishlegs asked. Yes. Those filthy people. They hunt down dragons and mercilessly kill them so that they can salvage dragons' wings, claws, wings, fangs and other things like poison or any special organs and sell those. Hiccup growled. The gang didn't dare to say anything. They could easily understand that Hiccup didn't like the dragon hunters at all. After a few seconds Hiccup let out a sigh. Sensing he has calmed down, Astrid decided to ask another question. So, how did you end up living here? Astrid asked. Oh, this. I found this island a few weeks after I ran away. So I Toothless began living here. At first it was a little hard, but with the help of my dragon friends I managed to make it through. Hiccup said. Well, you sure did. Ruffnut said while staring at Hiccup's abs. Hiccup felt a bit uncomfortable as he felt her gaze and decided to change the subject. So what happened to Berk? Why are you guys trying to find a new island? I thought the dragon raids were over at Berk. Hiccup asked. About that Astrid began. Berk was getting overpopulated, but it wasn't the main problem. Many of the lands in Berk became infertile and we had used too much of the island's resources. So Berk slowly started to become uninhabitable. We only have a couple more years until it becomes completely uninhabitable. Hiccup listened carefully. Although he hated Berk, he was saddened by the fate of his once home. He sighed and turned away, running his left hand through his hair. This is a mess. Hiccup said. I really wish I could help. Like someone as useless as you can help. Snotlout arrogantly said. What did you say? Hiccup asked with an edge in his voice. You didn't hear me. Or do you want me to repeat, useless? Snotlout mocked. Hiccup glared at him but didn't say anything and turned away from the raven-haired Viking. He took deep breaths to calm down. Snotlout, who was completely oblivious of what he's getting himself into, decided to try his luck again. What? Running away like a coward? You really are your mother's son. She was as pathetic as you are. Snotlout said. This was the final straw for Hiccup. He turned towards Snotlout, who had a smug grin on his face. Hiccup was beyond angry. He marched towards Snotlout at an incredible speed and grabbed him by his throat. The others were too surprised and scared to do anything. They just watched as Hiccup dragged Snotlout to a nearby wooden pillar. Hiccup slammed his cousin on the pillar and lifted him up from the ground with one hand. Snotlout was struggling to breathe. He tried his best to get out of Hiccup's grasp but it was of no use. Hiccup forced Snotlout to look at him in the eyes as Hiccup leaned closer to him. Now listen here, Snotlout. Insult me as much as you want. But never, ever dare to say anything foul about my mother. Hiccup coldly told Snotlout, who whimpered and nodded as fast as possible. Hiccup let go of Snotlout. Snotlout dropped on the floor and started coughing as he tried to regain his breath. Hiccup gave him one last glare and went to the other side of the forge. He picked up a tunic and proceeded to leave the forge. I am going for a walk. Don't touch anything in the forge. Hiccup told them as he hastily put on his tunic and left. Chapter 9, Bonding. Chapter text. The gang kept looking at the entrance of the forge as Hiccup stormed out. Finally Snotlout coughing got them out of their trance. The stocky Viking got up on his feet with his right hand on his throat. Snotlout coughed a few more times as his breathing got normal and the pain in his throat subdued. Astrid angrily looked at him and walked over to him and slapped him hard. What was that for? Snotlout yelled out as he clutched his hurting cheek. Do you even realize what you just said? How could you say all that stuff to Hiccup? Astrid exclaimed. She is right, dude. That was low. Way too low for even you. Tough Nut said. What? I was just trying to insult him. We always used to do that back in Berk. Snotlout said. For Thor's sake, Snotlout, you just insulted his mother. How would you feel if I called your mother a prostitute, huh? Astrid angrily told him. Snotlout looked down at his feet as he finally understood his mistake. I am sorry. I wasn't thinking and I just. Snotlout began but couldn't finish his sentence. He was lost for words. It's not me you should apologize to. Astrid told him and left the forge. Hiccups P.O.V. I was walking on a cliffside beside the sea. I was calmer than before. I knew Snotlout didn't like me but I never expected him to insult my mother. I didn't know much about her. She was taken away by dragons when I was baby. Gobber and Gothy always told me how caring and kind a person she was. I sat down near the cliff with my legs dangling over the sea. I brought my right knee up and rested my right arm on it as I stared at the horizon and collected my thoughts. The past 5 years have been a blast. I have had many adventures. Made friends, lost allies, fought enemies, rescued dragons. Even lost people very close to me. These 5 years have changed my life. Hiccup. I heard someone calling me. I turned around and saw Astrid standing a couple meters away from me. She looked worried. Oh, thank Thor I found you. I have been worried about you. She said as she walked over to me. Can I sit here? She gestured to the area beside me. Of course. I mean yeah you can. I stuttered a bit. Thanks. She said and sat beside me with her feet dangling over the sea. I glanced at her. She was beautiful before. But now, she looks like a Valkyrie from Asgard. Her beautiful blonde hair, ocean blue eyes, angelic smile. She is just perfect. I quickly looked away when she looked at me. Astrid's P.O.V. I looked at Hiccup. He has changed so much in the past 5 years. He was a cute goofball at first. But now, he is literally as hot as a deadly Nada's flame. His messy auburn hair, forest green eyes, charming smile. He is just perfect. I looked back at the sea. It was almost evening. The sun was soon gonna set. I kept staring at the horizon, seeing the sun slowly disappear. It's beautiful. I said. Yeah it is. I come here whenever I am stressed. Hiccup said. So Hiccup. Do you have a girlfriend? I shyly asked him. Ah no. I am still single. Hiccup said with an embarrassed face. He looks cute when he is like that. How about you? Is there anyone special in your life? He asked back. No. Not yet. I never found the right person to be with. I admitted while looking at the setting sun. Aha. I thought your parents and half the village would have forced you to marry Snotlout by now. Hiccup jokes. What? No. I would rather get banished than marry that idiot. I exclaimed and we both laughed at that. Ha ha, you haven't changed Astrid. Hiccup said. Well you haven't changed that much either. Still the funny and sarcastic guy you were. I told him and we both chuckled. I am sorry that I left that day. Hiccup said after a few moments of silence and looked down. Hiccup you don't have to apologize for it. I said and lifted his face with my right hand and made him look at me as I continued the hooligans would have never listened to you. It was your only choice. And look it worked out at the end. You became the Knight Rider. You rescue dragons and whatnot. Hiccup smiled at me as I finished and held my right hand which was still on his cheek. I looked into his eyes and fell into a kind of trance. We just sat there, looking into each other's eyes. I didn't know how long we were there. We only realized how late it was when the sun completely disappeared and darkness fell upon the world. Oh. It's pretty late. We should head home. Hiccup said and let go of my hand and got up on his feet. I was kind of disappointed when he pulled away. I wish the moment was longer. He offered me a hand. I gladly took it and he helped me on my feet. He then led me towards his mansion. When we got to the dirt path leading to his mansion I noticed that the torches on either side of the road were alight now. I had noticed these torches in the morning, but they weren't alight then. I looked at Hiccup with a questioning look. He noticed my look and said, "Ah, you might be thinking who ignited these torches." Well, it was the dragons. A folk of terrible terrors to be exact. It's their job to light up the torches after the sundown every day. I nodded at the explanation and we walked the rest of the way silently. When we reached the mansion we saw light coming out of the ground floor of the mansion. Either those terrors or the gang must have lighted up the torches and the fire pit. We saw Snotlout standing by the main door. Can I talk with you? In private. Snotlout asked as he noticed us and walked over to us. Hiccup gave me a look and I left but hid behind the door. Look, I want to apologize for the way I talked to you during our encounter in the forge. I shouldn't have said all that. I heard Snotlout saying. I couldn't believe that he could swallow his ego and apologize to someone. It's okay. I forgive you. I heard Hiccup saying. He's always so forgiving. One of the many things I like about him. Then I heard them talking again. Wait, just like that. I thought you would do something horrible to me, like getting me maimed by dragons. I am not like that, Snotlout. I thought you would know that. And then I heard some chuckling and footsteps approaching the door, so I quickly left. I entered the living room. There I saw Fishlegs sitting on a couch near the fire pit, reading a book. He looked quite interested in whatever he was reading. The twins were fighting over something, as always. I sat on a couch. Just then Snotlout entered the room followed by Hiccup. Snotlout sat beside Ruffnut and Hiccup sat on a separate chair. I noticed how his left foot made more noise compared to his right foot while walking. The difference is very faint but one can notice it if they pay close attention. So I decided to ask about it. Hey Hiccup, I noticed whenever you walk your left foot makes a bit more noise compared to your right one. Would mind if I ask why? I asked. Oh. It's because my left foot is prosthetic. He said and put of his left boot to reveal his prosthetic foot. We all gasped when we saw it. The prosthetic wasn't like anything I have seen before. It was made out of both metal and wood and I could tell it had some Hiccup flair thrown into it by looking at it. Normal P.O.V. The twins were looking at it in awe, while Snotlout and Fishlegs were gaping. Astrid was slightly concerned too. How did you got it? Astrid asked. Oh, it is a fun story actually. Hiccup said with a chuckle and told them about his fight against Red Death, the queen of the nest in Helheim's Gate. The gang was in complete awe as they heard the story. And that's how I ended up with this. Hiccup finished his story. That Tuffnut began. Is. Ruffnut said. Awesome. They both exclaimed and Hiccup chuckled at that. Makes sense why people fear you cause. Snotlout said. Anyway, enough with the stories. You guys must be hungry. Hiccup said. Yeah. I could eat. Astrid said. Good. It's dinner time. Hiccup said and led them to the dining room. From there he entered the kitchen where he began preparing the dinner while the gang were seated on the chairs around the dinner table and were talking among themselves. About half an hour later Toothless entered the dining room followed by another dragon which looked like a night fury but had white scales instead of black. The sudden appearance of the two dragons made the gang, excluding Astrid, panic. Toothless. Luna. Right on time for dinner. Hiccup said as he entered the dining room. He led both of the dragons to the other side of the room near two rock slabs. He then went inside the kitchen and brought two satchels filled with fish and gave it to them. Sorry about that. Toothless and Luna normally eat with me in the dining room. Hiccup told the gang. Luna. Fishlegs asked. She's the white-scaled dragon and she is Toothless' mate. I rescued her from a dragon hunter named Grimmel the Grizzly. Wait a minute, the food is almost done. Hiccup said and went inside the kitchen. After a few minutes Hiccup entered the dining room, pushing a trolley carrying the dinner. There was fried steak, bread, chicken soup and fish on the trolley. Hiccup put all the food on the table and joined the gang into eating. The food was amazing. They didn't know Hiccup was this good at cooking. So Hiccup, what happened to this Grimmel guy? Snotlout asked while munching on a piece of chicken. Let's just say, he's 6 feet under the ground now. Hiccup replied while eating a fish. You really hate dragon hunters, don't you? Ruffnut asked. You bet I do. Hiccup said and took a bite from a piece of bread. The rest of the dinner went silently. Once they were finished eating they all went to their rooms. Sleep quickly took over Astrid when she laid down on her bed. For the first time in many years, Astrid Horferson had a good sleep. Chapter 10, Knowing Him Part 1. Chapter text. Astrid woke up quite later than usual. She stretched a bit while sitting on the bed and then got off the bed and walked over to the window to see the outside. She was shocked when she noticed it was almost midday. Back at Berk she would wake up early in the morning every day, but for some reason she slept longer today. She quickly went downstairs and saw Fish Legs quietly eating a piece of bread and some boiled eggs while reading a book. The twins were fighting over something and Snotlout was watching them fighting. "Good morning guys," Astrid said as she approached them. "Hey Astrid." Fish Legs greeted her. "Hey." The twins greeted her and returned back to fighting. "You're looking great babe." Snotlout tried to flirt but one glare from Astrid shut him up. "Where's Hiccup?" Astrid asked. "Well, he went out after preparing our breakfast. He said he had some work to do," Tough Nut said as he got up from the ground as he and his sister had stopped fighting. "Gotta say, this book is very interesting. It has so much information on the natural habitats and eating habits," Fish Legs said in amazement. "Shut it, Fish. No one in here is interested in all that nerdy stuff." Snotlout laughed. "Where did you get that from?" Astrid asked Fish Legs as she pointed towards the book in his hands. "Oh, this. Hiccup gave me it when he saw me wandering in the library," Fish Legs said. "Wait, there's a library in here?" Everyone in the room asked with shock. "How boring," Tough Nut said. "Yeah. I can't believe Hiccup is so nerdy," Snotlout said. "Nerdy but hot," Rough Nut said as she began daydreaming about Hiccup. Snotlout, Tough Nut, Astrid and Fish Legs gave her a weird look. Feeling their looks, Rough Nut snapped out of her trance. I am going out for a walk," Rough Nut awkwardly said and quickly left the house. Others kept staring at her as she left and when she did, they returned back to what they were doing. Astrid went to the bathroom and washed her face. After finishing her breakfast with a few slices of bread and 2 boiled eggs, she left the house to look for Hiccup. She first checked the forge but he wasn't there. She just found some big crates. She left the forge and followed a dirt path leading towards a nearby hill. She followed the path and after a few minutes she found herself in a rocky field on the side of the hill. There were trees scattered around. After a few minutes of walking on the dirt path she saw Rough Nut lying on her stomach on the ground. She was watching something. Seeing this, Astrid decided to check out what's going on. "Rough Nut," Astrid called out as she walked towards her friend. Rough Nut looked back and saw her. Her eyes went wide at the sight of Astrid. "What are you doing here?" Astrid asked. "Shush. You will make him aware of us," Rough Nut whisper yelled. This got Astrid curious. "Who is him?" she asked in a low voice. "Come and have a look for yourself," Rough Nut said in an equally low voice. Astrid walked over to Rough Nut and saw that she was lying next to a huge hole in the ground. She crouched beside Rough Nut and saw inside the hole. But what she saw made her eyes go wide. The hole in the ground was as big as the cove near Raven's Point, but it had smooth stone brick-made walls and floor, similar to the kill ring back at Berk. But that's not the shocking part. The shocking part was that Hiccup and Toothless were inside the hole. Hiccup was shirtless and had a big sack tied to his back which probably contained weights and was doing push-ups while Toothless was watching him and growling lightly every time Hiccup did a push-up. Astrid just stayed like that as she watched Hiccup doing workout. "Whoa, since when did he start doing workout?" someone said in a low voice. Astrid got freaked out and her instincts kicked in as she turned around and grabbed whoever that person was behind her and proceeded to punch that person. But she stopped when she saw that the person she grabbed was Tough Nut. Snotlout and Fish Legs were also standing near them. "Astrid, it's me," Tough Nut fearfully said. "What are you doing here?" Astrid demanded. "We got bored by staying indoors, so we decided to take a stroll and found this dirt path which led us to here, and we saw you two watching something, so we came here to check what's happening," Snotlout blurted out fearfully. "I was perfectly fine with staying at home," Fish Legs said. Shut it, guys. Hiccup just stopped doing push-ups. Rough Nut quietly said. All of them stopped and returned back to watching Hiccup. Hiccup's P.O.V. And 100. Toothless said as I did my final push-up. In the past 5 years, with the help of Toothless, I learned how to talk to dragons and understand what they are saying. I call this language Dragonese. It makes interacting with dragons a lot easier, and the dragons trust me more because of that. /n whenever someone is speaking in Dragonese, the dialogues will be in italics and underlined. Example. Normal speech equals hello there. Dragonese equals hello there. Finally, I said as I sat on the floor and began to untie the sack on my back. 100 push-ups are done. I dropped the sack beside me and the rocks inside it spilled out of it. I wiped off some sweat from my forehead as I tried to regain my breath. Come on, Hiccup. You need to stay strong and fit. And don't dare to say that the axe wound is hurting. I know that it's all healed up. Toothless said in a stern tone. You're starting to sound like an annoying trainer. I said out of annoyance. Come on, get up. You still have one more exercise to do before you spar with the pack. Toothless barked. Okay. Give me a few moments to rest at least. I said. Ever since I ran away from Burke, I began to work out every day to improve my strength and physical abilities. Toothless has been making sure that I don't skip a single day. At first it was easy, but as I grew older, Toothless started making the exercises harder. After resting for some time, I got up and walked over to the wall of the training arena. There were 2 metal rods sticking out of the wall. I had attached them on the wall when I built this arena to do pull-ups. I grabbed the rods and began to do pull-ups. Normal P.O.V. The gang was in shock. They were already gaping when they heard how many push-ups Hiccup did. But when they saw Hiccup doing pull-ups, their jaws were hitting the ground. In a matter of some time, Hiccup had done 50 pull-ups. Hiccup's P.O.V. I dropped on the floor after doing 50 pull-ups. Today's workout is almost over. There is only one last thing to do. I took deep breaths and swung and shook my arms to get rid of the pain and tiredness. Ready for the final thing, Hiccup? Toothless asked. I was born ready. I said as I felt well rested. Just then Toothless let out a mighty roar. In a few moments I heard the sound of wings flapping. I looked up into the sky and there I saw 4 familiar dragons. Those dragons were none other than Hookfang, Stormfly, Meatlug and Barf and Belch. Hookfang is a monstrous nightmare with red scales, Stormfly is a deadly nadder with blue and golden yellow scales, Meatlug is Gronkle with brown scales, and Barf and Belch are a Zippyback with green scales. Barf is the right head and Belch is the left head. They were the very same dragons that I had rescued from the kill ring 5 years ago. Over the day we bonded quite well. They landed in the arena and surrounded me as Toothless walked over to the other side of the arena. Ready for today, Fleshy? Hookfang smugly said. Oh come on, Hookfang. You know it's not that easy to defeat me anymore. I said. Remember the rules, guys. No maiming each other, no fire breathing. Meatlug reminded everyone with concern. Don't worry about that, Meatlug. It's just a friendly spar. I told her. You may begin when I give the signal. Toothless said. I got into a battle stance along with the dragons. Toothless let out a roar and with that the spar began. I and Hookfang ran towards each other. He swung his right wing, trying to hit me with his claw, but I ducked under it. I then punched him hard in the jaw. Hookfang took a step back as I punched him 2 more times with both of my hands. He tried to bite me, but I stepped aside just in time to avoid it. I then kicked his head. Hookfang's head hit the floor as I backed away. I then heard a squeak and looked back to see Stormfly charging at me. I quickly stepped aside as she tried to bite me and punched her in the face and backed away a bit. Just then Meatlug rounded into me, throwing me away. I dropped on the floor and rolled away a bit. I got up back on my feet and Barf and Belch in front of me. They turned around and swatted me with their tails. The impact made me skid back a bit. I then got up back on my feet and ran towards Barf and Belch. They only had enough time to look back at me as I jump kicked Barf. Before I fell on the floor, I pushed my leg forward against Barf's face and pushed myself back as I did a backflip and dropped on the floor. Before Belch could comprehend what happened, I ran towards them and jumped on top of Buff's neck and jumped again to reach Belch's height and punched him. I landed on the floor and without waiting another moment I turned towards Buff and Belch and grabbed Belch, who was dazed because of the punch, and slammed him on the ground. Belch went unconscious but Buff was still awake. So before he could do anything I grabbed him and scratched him in his sweet spot under his head, making him go unconscious. I then looked forward and saw Meatlug and Stormfly ready to charge at me. "Come on. Hit me," I shouted as I walked towards them. Stormfly raised her spikes and shot them at me. I ran aside to avoid the spikes. I saw that Meatlug was flying towards me, so I ran towards her, and when I was close enough I grabbed her lower jaw and skid aside as I dragged her downwards. Meatlug crashes on the floor and flips over. 2 down, 2 more to go, I thought with a smirk. Stormfly growled a bit and then ran towards me. I charged at her and skid under her and swept one of her legs from under her. Stormfly crashed on the floor, right on her face. Before she could get up I sat on her neck and scratched her sweet spot. I then got off her and turned around to face Hook Fang. "Looks like it's just you and me," Hook Fang said. "Don't try it," I warned him. "You underestimate my power," Hook Fang said and flew towards me and shot a blast of fire towards me. I barely managed to avoid it as he landed in front of me. I managed to avoid the barrages of attacks he threw at me and backflipped away from him. "Hey! That's against the rules," I exclaimed. "Do I look like I play by the rules?" Hook Fang smugly said and ran towards me. I was kind of expecting this from Hook Fang. I avoided his attacks and then punched him in the face as hard as I could. Hook Fang dropped on the floor but tried to get up. He was dazed, so I took advantage of the moment and punched him a couple more times and finally interlocked both of my hands and brought them up and slammed them down on Hook Fang's head. Hook Fang dropped on the floor unconscious. "Ladies and gentlemen, today's champion is Hiccup," Toothless teasingly exclaimed. I laughed at this and Toothless also joined me. Normal P.O.V. Astrid and her friends were both shocked and amazed. They had seen Hiccup taking down dragons in the kill ring during their dragon training 5 years ago. But bare-handedly defeating a monstrous nightmare, a deadly Nada, a Gronkle and a Zippyback all at the same time is on a different level. That was awesome. Both Tough Nut and Rough Nut said in a low voice. I have never seen Uncle Stoic do something as badass as that. Snotlout gasped. Is it just me, or was Hiccup really talking to those dragons? Fishlegs suddenly said. What do you mean, Fish? Tough asked. Didn't you notice how he was talking to the dragons while sparring? Or with Toothless? It's like he can understand them. Fishlegs explained. Yeah, that is weird. Tough Nut said. Guys, he has been living with dragons for the past 5 years and has been studying them. Maybe he figured out a way to understand what the dragons are saying. Astrid said. Hiccups P.O.V. The dragons slowly got up. With our spar, my training is complete for today, so I decided to leave. There were some things I needed to take care of. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. My instincts are almost never wrong and I know it is not the dragons. So I quickly climbed up the walls of the arena and found Astrid and her friends on the ground above the arena. They were talking among themselves and didn't notice me. I sneakily made my way towards them and suddenly appeared in front of them. This startled the gang. Snotlout and Fishlegs even screamed. Relax guys. It's just me, I said as I chuckled. Hiccup. Astrid angrily said and walked over to me and punched my arm. The punch hurt a bit, but I have endured harder hits. But it looked like the punch hurt Astrid more than me. Damn, is this arm even real? Why the heck does my hand hurt so much after I punched you? She said as she shook her hand. Because of the muscles, I guess, I joked. Suddenly Rough Nut grabbed my arm and began massaging it. Oh, you have some really tough muscles, Rough Nut weirdly said. I pulled my arm out of her grasp and awkwardly said thanks. I guess. I heard some noises, looked at my left and saw Toothless snickering. I just rolled my eyes and said, come on, let's go. I have some work to do. I left that place and walked towards the forge, followed Astrid and her friends. Toothless was walking by my side. So mind if I ask why were you guys spying on me? Asked. We actually got bored in the house, so we decided to explore the island and stumbled upon you. Fishlegs quickly said. That sounds like a logical explanation. Aha. I said. So Hiccup, do you train like that every day? Astrid asked. Yup. I replied. Wait. Like that? Every day? Astrid almost shouted. Turned around to face her and started walking back as I spoke. Yeah. It begins with a 5-mile run in the woods above the hill. After that I do 100 squats, 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups and finally a little spar with the dragons. I casually said. Those dragons, they looked kinda familiar. Fishlegs said. Actually those dragons who were sparring with me in the arena were the same dragons I had rescued from the kill ring at Burke. I told them. Wait, you were that guy who rescued those dragons 5 years ago? Tough Nut exclaimed. Yup. I said and turned around and walked properly and said, guys, I have some work to do, so I am gonna go. You may explore the island but don't harm the dragons. And left them. I hopped on Toothless and he flew me to the forge. Their 4 nightmares were already waiting for me. Hey guys. I greeted them. Hello Hiccup. They greeted me back. Okay. It's time. I told them. I then brought out the crates stored inside the forge. Most of the crates contained swords, daggers, shields, armors and single-handed axes made by me. While the others have things like expensive seashells, and expensive stones normally used to make jewelry. I loaded the crates on the satchel on the back of the nightmares. When it was done I mounted Toothless and we all flew towards the seashore. A few minutes later. After a short flight we were flying above the seashore. I looked around and soon found Trader Johan's ship anchored at the shore. Johan used to be a secret dragon hunter. But he along with some other dragon hunters joined me and became my allies. Johan is quite helpful. He can bring me resources I can't easily find on the island. Like high-quality leather, paper, books, ink, and metals which can't be found in Archipelago. I landed near his ship and Johan came out of his ship. Ah, Master Hiccup. It's been so long since we met. Johan greeted. Johan, I told you 1,000 times that you don't have to call me Master Hiccup. Just call me Hiccup. I said as I dismounted Toothless. And you know that I am gonna call you Master Hiccup anyway. Johan said. We both chuckled a bit at that. So, you got what I asked for? I asked him. Yes, Master Hiccup. I have got the leather, books, metal and other materials you asked for. Hope you have the payment. Johan said as he gestured to the goods kept on his ship. Yes I do. I said as I gestured to the crates on the back of the nightmares. Then what are we waiting for? Johan loudly said and soon the crates were on his ship and the crates and satchels he brought me were on the back of my dragons. It's always a pleasure to do business with you Master Hiccup. I will be looking forward for our next meeting. Johan said as he set sail for another island. I mounted Toothless and we all made our way back to the forge. After unloading the cargo I and Toothless went back to our house to have a little snack. When we reached there we found the gang inside the living room. You guys are here. I thought you wanted to explore the island. I asked them as I entered the room. Well yeah, but we had a problem. Snotlout said. Well you see Hiccup, we aren't much familiar with this place and we don't want to get into trouble. Rough Nut began. What we want to say is, can you please show us around? Astrid suddenly said. I just stood there staring at them, unable to comprehend what just happened. Chapter 11, Knowing Him Part 2. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Hiccup kept staring at them for a while as the gang waited in anticipation. After a few moments Hiccup made up his mind. Okay. Sure. I don't have much work today either. Hiccup said. The twins cheered in excitement at this. After having an apple as a snack Hiccup left the house with Toothless beside him and the gang following behind them. Hiccup began showing them around the island. Starting from the beaches to the hills. During the tour they came across a big hill on a high ground near the seashore. It was hardly a few feet shy of average mountains, but it was huge. There were hundreds of caves visible on the surface of the hill. And there were dragons. Hundreds of dragons either flying around or playing. It was such a sight to see all the dragons of different colors and species at one place. It's a sight, isn't it? Hiccup asked as he watched the gang's reaction. Fishlegs was super excited and was looking around like a kid while holding his notebook in his hand and frantically trying to write down all the details. As for the twins, they were watching the dragons in awe and started grinning when they saw some zipleybacks and nightmares playing with fire. Snotlout was gapping as he saw all this. How did you get so many dragons? Astrid asked in awe. Most of them were under the rule of Red Death. When I and Toothless defeated Red Death and freed them, they chose us as their alpha or leader and stayed with us. And the rest were rescued from dragon hunters. Hiccup said as he pet Toothless on his head. Man, there are a lot of dragons. How do you even handle them? Snotlout exclaimed as he grabbed his head with both of his arms. Oh, I don't have to do much. Dragons are actually quite social and don't cause any harm unless they are provoked. They are free to roam, fly and hunt. I just interfere when there is actually some problem. Hiccup said. Astrid was walking around, but suddenly she tripped on a rock. She almost fell on the ground, but Hiccup caught her in time. But Hiccup's prosthetic leg came loose and it slipped out, making both Hiccup and Astrid fall on the ground. Hiccup dropped on his back with Astrid on top of him. They groaned as Astrid hoisted herself up with her hands. Astrid looked down at Hiccup and her eyes met his and vice versa. The time seemed to freeze and the world around them disappeared as they looked into each other's eyes. But the moment got ruined by a certain black dragon who began wobbling around them while holding Hiccup's prosthetic leg in his mouth. Realizing their situation, Astrid quickly got up on her feet while Hiccup sat on the ground. He took the prosthetic from Toothless' mouth and reattached it. Astrid lended him a hand and helped him to get up. They didn't notice Rough Nut snickering as she watched all this while the others were busy watching the dragons. Thanks. Hiccup awkwardly said while rubbing the back of his neck. Don't mention it. Astrid said, refusing to look at Hiccup while trying not to blush. This place is awesome. There are so many kinds of dragons. So many things you can learn from them. It is just amazing. Fishlegs yelled out in excitement as he approached them. Slow down, Legs. Or you might get a knot tied on your tongue. Snotlout said. The twins laughed while Fishlegs shrunk in embarrassment. Now let's go. There are a lot of other things you have to see and we don't have the whole day for it. He then let them out of the dragon's nest and continued the tour. After some time they reached a stream in middle of the woods and decided to rest there for a while. The gang gathered firewood and some fruits while Hiccup caught some fish from the stream with his hands. After setting up a campfire, Toothless ignited it with a small plasma blast while Hiccup prepared the fishes for cooking. Hiccup and Astrid finished their meals quickly while the others were still eating. Astrid decided to walk around a bit while her friends finished their food. While walking around, she went deeper in the woods. She suddenly noticed a clearing. She went over to the clearing. She looked around and noticed a large stone poking out of the ground. It looked like a grave. She had seen graves like that back at Burke. She noticed some carvings on the stone and proceeded to walk over the stone to read it properly. But suddenly someone grabbed her from behind. She shrieked and turned around to see who it was. The person turned out to be none other than Hiccup. Hiccup! Astrid almost yelled. What are you doing here? Hiccup asked. I was walking around when I saw this place and decided to check it out. Well, we better go and regroup with the others. They have finished their lunch and are ready to go. Hiccup then dragged Astrid out of there. Astrid tried to ask about the stone, but Hiccup shut her up, saying that it was nothing. Astrid saw a dark look on Hiccup's face and decided to not question about it further. After regrouping, they visited few more places and by evening they were back at Hiccup's house. By this time Astrid had forgotten about the incident in the woods. The rest of the evening went by quickly. After having dinner, everyone went back to their room to sleep. All except Hiccup. Hiccup was inside his room, sitting on his bed. There was another bed made out of wood and hay bale on the other side of the room for Toothless. But the said dragon was not present in the room. Ever since he and Luna became mates they had been living in a cave near Hiccup's house. Hiccup was sitting on his bed. A light candle was placed on the desk beside his bed. He had a leather-wrapped book in his hands. Hiccup looked through the pages of the book and finally found the page he was looking for. He brushed his hand against the page as he looked at the contents of the page. Jegsavna Digster. Hiccup said and closed the book and blew out the candle and laid down on the bed. Notes. Hey guys, Commander Alpha here. Here's the new chapter of the story. Hope you like it. Sorry for the delay. Quick question. Legolas, Lata, vs Hawkeye, Avengers. Who would win? Tell me in the comments. Chapter 12, Mending the Past. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. It's been 3 days since their tour around the island. The dragons have gotten used to the presence of the gang and aren't as hostile to them as before. The gang have found hobbies for themselves too. Astrid occasionally trains in the arena. Fishlegs spends most of his time in the library, reading the books. Tough Nut and Rough Nut tried to cause chaos a few times. One particular incident led up to many a group of dragons running into the woods and burning down a portion of it. It took Hiccup almost a whole day to get the situation under control and 3 more days to put out the fire. Ever since then the twins are banned from interacting with dragons. Hiccup had to assemble a team of terrible terrors to watch over them always so that they don't cause any destruction. As for Snotlout, he had suddenly taken an interest in Rough Nut and has been continuously trying to woo her. As for Hiccup, he is busy most of the time, doing his work. He would talk with the gang sometimes but he wasn't that open with them. The only exception was Astrid, with whom he spent a lot of his free time. Like every day Fishlegs was in the library, reading books. Today he found a new book on dragons. He was fascinated with the information the book provided. He was so enclosed in the book that he didn't notice someone entering the library. I see you have found a new book. The sudden statement freaked out Fishlegs as he screamed as he looked up, only to find the person speaking was Hiccup. Oh, Hiccup. Please don't do that again. You scared the life out of me. Fishlegs said as he tried to catch his breath. Sorry Fish. Hiccup apologized. By the way, where did you get this book from? You like this book? Yeah. It is extremely informative and fascinating. Oh well, I wrote this book. Fishlegs looked at Hiccup in shock as Hiccup finished his sentence. No way. Fishlegs said in awe. Come on Fish. I spent 5 years living with dragons and rescuing them. I have gathered enough knowledge to write thousands of books on them. Hiccup proudly said. Fishlegs was in total awe and they spent some time talking about dragons and sharing their opinions. You haven't changed that much Hiccup. You still have the same enthusiasm and curiosity for the unknown as before. Fishlegs suddenly said. This made Hiccup go silent. He was quiet for a few moments and then said, you know, we haven't had a conversation like this after that day. Fishlegs looked down in sadness. He clearly remembered the day Hiccup was talking about. It was the day he ended his friendship with Hiccup. He and Hiccup used to be very good friends when they were young. But when Snotlout started bullying Hiccup, he got scared that he would receive the same treatment if he hung out with Hiccup. So he ended his friendship with Hiccup to hang out with the more popular kids. He still remembered the pained look on Hiccup's face when he told him that he doesn't want to hang out with her anymore. Fishlegs sighed. He felt ashamed for doing that. I am sorry Hiccup. Fishlegs suddenly said, I am really sorry. For what I had done with you. It was wrong for me to throw away your friendship like that. Hiccup listened to him carefully. After years of living with dragons, he could easily read someone's emotions and tell if the person is telling the truth or not. Hiccup listened to Fishlegs and realized that Fishlegs was truly sorry. It's okay Fish. Hiccup said as he put his hand on said man's shoulder. This shocked Fishlegs. He looked up to meet Hiccup's gaze as the dragon rider continued, I was sad at first but I had realized your reasons. I never held a grudge against you. Hiccup finished with a smile. Fishlegs felt a small spark of hope and gathered up his courage and spoke, Hiccup. I know it sounds crazy, but can we be friends again? Fishleg's confidence slowly started to vanish when he saw Hiccup's stoic expression, but what Hiccup said shocked him. I would love to, Hiccup said with a smile. Fishleg's mouth hung open in joy and excitement. Really? Fishlegs excitedly asked. Yup. I believe in giving people a second chance if they deserve it, Hiccup told him. Fishlegs got up from his chair and went over to Hiccup and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Hiccup. Fish can't breathe, Hiccup managed to gasp out. Fishlegs let go of Hiccup and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Anyway, you keep reading. I have some work to attend to, Hiccup said and left the library. 4 days later. It's been 4 days since Hiccup's interaction with Fishlegs. Ever since then Fishlegs has been more joyous. He could be often found talking with Hiccup in the library. Hiccup had reduced the restrictions on the twins after they showed that they will be on their best behavior and will try not to cause any kind of mayhem that big. And surprisingly they didn't show any sign of planning something. Hiccup would often find them with Barf and Belch. It seems that the two-headed dragon and the twins have formed a bond. Hiccup was surprised to see how fast they had adapted to this new way of life. Snotlout was still being the arrogant prick he was and even managed to annoy some of the dragons. Those dragons would shoot small fireballs at him and burn his pants whenever Snotlout tried to approach them with that attitude. The twins confronted Hiccup in the forge one day. Hey Hiccup. You got a moment to spare? Tuffnut asked as he and his sister entered the forge. Hiccup was working on some project at that moment. He put aside his equipment and went over to the twins. What happened? He asked them. Well, we wanted to ask you something, Ruffnut said. Okay. What do you want to ask? Why are you treating us like this? Tuffnut asked. What do you mean? Hiccup asked, confused. You know, we bullied you back at Berk. Practically turned your life into a living hellhole. Even caused chaos in here and still you are treating us so nicely. Why? Ruffnut asked. Hiccup was silent for a few moments and then he spoke. I just felt like it was the right thing to do. Just because you guys were horrible to me doesn't mean that I should treat you the same. Tuffnut and Ruffnut were left stunned at that. The guilt of treating Hiccup badly worsened. They honestly didn't know why they bullied him in the first place. They just happened to join Snotlout thinking that it would be fun. The twins looked at each other and after a few moments nodded. Hey, Hiccup. Ruffnut called him, gaining his attention. Can you please give us another chance? We would really like to make up for everything we had done to you. Tuffnut said. Hiccup thought for a moment and then said I can give you a chance. The twins looked at him in shock. Look guys, I don't hold grudges against people. And I prefer to give people a second chance if they deserve it. Hiccup told them. The twins were overjoyed and they hugged him. They pull away from Hiccup. We won't let you down, Hick. Tuffnut said with a grin. By the way, what is that? Ruffnut asked, pointing at the project Hiccup was working on. Oh, that's a prototype device I had been working on for a while. Hiccup tells them as they all approach the device. It's a miniature version of Mebola launcher and is the size of a crossbow. There's a lot of work still left, don't touch it. Hiccup's explanation was cut short as he yelled at Ruffnut who was trying to touch the device. But even with his warning Ruffnut decided to press a metal plate. The metal plate happens to be the only thing holding the launching mechanism and as it was moved, the launching mechanism activated and threw out the bola loaded in the device. The bola hit a rack containing multiple weapons and sacks filled with coal. The rack dropped on the floor, scattering the weapons on the ground as one of the coal sacks somehow dropped in the forge nearby. Which ends up causing a fiery mess which causes almost half of the forge to catch fire. Hiccup watched in horror as the fire consumed part of his forge, destroying many materials and his designs. Oh. Should have made that thing stronger. Tuffnut commented. Hiccup spun around to face them and glared at them. The twins hugged each other in fear. Sorry Hick. They tried to apologize. From now on you two are banned from coming here. Now get out of this place before I turn both of you in roast and roast. Hiccup yelled at them. Fearing for their lives, the twins ran away as soon as possible. Hiccup activated the automatic fire extinguishing system, which puts out most of the fire while he gathers some dragons to help him extinguish the rest. 1 week later. It's been a week since the incident in the forge. It was midday and Hiccup had to rescue Snotlout from Hookfang after Snotlout managed to annoy the dragon enough for him to chase the Viking around the island. After the rescue and calming down Hookfang, Hiccup and Snotlout were resting in the living room of Hiccup's house. Both of them had a jug full of mead in their hands. Thanks for the save cause. Although I didn't need it. I had everything under control. Snotlout said, taking a sip from his half-empty jug. Sure you did. Hiccup sarcastically said back. Why did you save me? After what I did to you, it was a great chance for you to take revenge. I would have used to full advantage. Snotlout suddenly asked him. You know, Snotlout, I am not like that. I don't hold a grudge against any of you. Well, maybe except you. But I am willing to give you a chance. Hiccup told him. Snotlout looked at him as Hiccup continued, I prefer to give people a second chance if they deserve it. And I have noticed that you aren't as arrogant as you used to be. So I am willing to give you a chance. And maybe we can be friends again. Hiccup's statement made Snotlout go completely silent. I will let you think about it. Hiccup said and finished his drink and proceeded to leave. When he was at the door, Snotlout called for him. Hiccup looked back and Snotlout thanked him for the chance. Hiccup nodded his head and left. 2 days later. Hiccup and Astrid were sitting on the cliffside beside the sea. The same place where she found him the day she arrived here. They were watching the sunset. During the last few days Hiccup had bonded with the gang quite well. Something Astrid saw as a good sign. She and Hiccup had grown quite close during all these days. Astrid glanced at Hiccup. She watched him smiling as he looked at the horizon. Memories flooded her mind. Her face fell in sadness as she remembered about their childhood. She and Hiccup used to be best friends. But after the Flightmare incident she and him became distant. She even ended her friendship with him. Hiccup noticed her sad face and put his hand on her shoulder. Astrid looked up at him and saw his smiling face and a smile crept on her face. She then suddenly hugged him. Hiccup didn't know why she did it but hugged her back anyway to comfort her. Hiccup, can you forgive me? Astrid suddenly asked. Forgive you for what? Hiccup asked, shocked. For leaving you. Hiccup pulled away from her and said, it's okay, Astrid. I forgave you for that a long time ago. I just hope that we can start a new friendship. Astrid smiled at him and said, I would love that. They then noticed that it was getting dark. We should get back. Hiccup suggested and they got up. But before they left, Astrid suddenly grabbed him by his arm and pulled him towards her and kissed him on his cheek. Let's go now. Astrid quickly said and left, leaving a dumbfounded Hiccup behind. He touched the place where she kissed him and saw her leaving in a blissful state. Notes. Hey guys. Commander Alpha here. Hope you like this chapter. Quick question. What is your favorite mythical creature? Tell me in the comments. Bye guys. Alpha out. Peace. Chapter 13, Rescue. Chapter text. It's been a few weeks since Hiccup and the gang got along. Hiccup's behavior around them seemed to improve. Snotlout and the twins helped him however they could to earn his trust. After spending so many days with Hiccup, Astrid began to have this strange feeling around him. They were already good friends, but this feeling that she was feeling was something entirely different. She would often sneak glances of the said dragon rider and sometimes would find him staring at her. Hiccup would immediately look away from her whenever she caught him staring. Astrid found it flattering. Hiccup was trying to work on a sword but his thoughts kept distracting him. He was getting distracted by his thoughts. For the past few days he has been thinking about Astrid. He always had a crush on her but never got the chance to make a move. Hiccup put the sword back in the forge to bring up its temperature. He backed away from the forge as the memory of Astrid kissing him on his cheek rushed back to his mind. Hiccup smiled as he closed his eyes and touched the place on his cheek where Astrid kissed. After some time Hiccup pulled the sword out of the forge and dipped it in a barrel full of oil. After some time he pulled it out of the barrel and checked for warps and any other kind of problems. Once satisfied with the sword he put it on a table and decided to take a break. He stepped out of the forge and was looking around when he spotted Astrid coming towards him. "Hey Astrid." Hiccup greeted her. "Hey." Astrid greeted him back. "So, what brings you here?" "Oh, nothing. Thought I would just hang out with you for a while. Hope you won't mind." Hiccup's face lit up as Astrid said that. "Sure. I don't mind at all," he quickly said. Astrid giggled at his enthusiasm, making Hiccup smile as well. But the moment was interrupted when they heard a squeak. They looked up and saw a terrible terror flying towards them. Hiccup raised his arm and the terror landed on his arm. The terror had something wrapped around its neck. Hiccup took it off and it turned out to be rolled paper. The terror squeaked and flew away. "What was that?" Astrid asked Hiccup. "That terror was delivering this letter to me," Hiccup said, showing her the rolled paper. Seeing that Astrid was still confused, he said, "It's called Terror Mail. It's a system I and my allies use to send each other letters." "You have allies?" Astrid asked, shocked. "Astrid, you don't become a legendary dragon rider and spend 5 years without making allies," Hiccup told her as he unrolled the paper. But after reading the contents of the paper he became serious. "What happened, Hiccup?" Astrid asked, feeling concerned. "Nothing. I have some important work to take care of," Hiccup said as he began walking away. "Astrid, you're in charge. Make sure the twins don't cause chaos and Snotlout doesn't get eaten," Hiccup yelled out as he ran towards his house, leaving a very confused Astrid behind. Hiccup ran in his house and after making sure that no one was inside, he opened a secret door leading to a basement. Hiccup rushed inside the basement. It was the place where he kept his weapons and armors. Hiccup put on his armor and took his weapons and rushed out of the house with Toothless' saddle. /n The armor Hiccup is using in here is the armor used by Hiccup in HTTYD3 with a Night Fury scale cloak. The helmet doesn't have the spikes. He crossed the stream and made his way towards Toothless' cave. Once he reached there he called out for his dragon. Toothless and Luna came out of the cave and stood in front of Hiccup. "Toothless, we've got some work to do," Hiccup hurriedly told Toothless. Toothless looked at Luna and she gave him a nod. Toothless looked back at Hiccup with determination and said, "Then what are we waiting for, brother? Let's go." Hiccup then put on the saddle Toothless' back and mounted him. Luna looked at them and said, "Be safe you two." "Don't worry Luna," Toothless said. "We will be fine." Hiccup reassured her and then the dragon-human duo launched in the sky and flew towards some unknown destination. A long while later. It was night time. Toothless was soaring over the clouds. Hiccup was looking down at the sea, trying to spot something. After a while he noticed something. It was a big ship. "Finally found it." Hiccup mumbled and motioned Toothless to go down. Toothless followed his instructions and began lowering himself. Both the dragon and his rider were camouflaged in the dark sky. They both successfully made their way to the ship and landed on the deck. On the deck, there were many cages containing dragons. Hiccup frowned as he looked around. "There are more than I was expecting," Hiccup mumbled. "Then let's get started before anyone spots us," Toothless told Hiccup as he looked around. Hiccup went over to the nearest cage. There were 3 Sniffle Hunch inside it. All of them were muzzled to prevent them from shooting fire. The dragons noticed Hiccup and they backed away a bit. Hiccup slides his hand inside the cage through the gaps between the metal bars and showed them his palm. The dragons looked doubtful at first, but then one of them came forward and pressed its snout against his palm. The other 2 dragons do the same after the first one pulls away. After that Hiccup quickly opened the cage and took off the muzzles and told the dragons the location of his island. The dragons flew away towards the island and Hiccup went over to the other cage while Toothless covered him while staying hidden. Hiccup unlocked more of the cages while hiding from the people guarding the ship. He was unlocking another one when suddenly someone barked out, "Who are ya?" Hiccup turned around and saw there were 4 big bulky men standing a few feet away from him. They were armed with spears and had other weapons on them. One of them was holding a lantern in one hand. He came forward intending to threaten and interrogate Hiccup, but as they reached close, Hiccup quickly punched the guy. The lantern flew away from that guy's hand and dropped on the floor and broke as fire spreaded on the wooden floor. Before the guy could regain his balance, Hiccup caught him by his neck and threw him at the cage, knocking him out. Two of the remaining guards ran towards him with their spears raised, but just then Toothless came out of his hiding and ran into them, knocking both of them out. The remaining guard ran away, screaming. This alerted the other guards. Knowing they're in trouble, Hiccup decided to change the plan. Time for Plan B. Toothless, free the dragons. I will keep them busy, Hiccup told Toothless. Toothless gave a nod and then shot a plasma blast at the cage Hiccup was trying to open. The blast destroyed the front part of the cage, enabling dragons to fly away with the ones that escaped before them. Toothless went over to the other cages as Hiccup walked towards the other side of the deck. On his way, Hiccup came across a group of guards. They were all armed with axes, swords and maces. Hiccup quickly pulled out something from his suit. In both of his hands were something that looked like the handle of a sword. The guards laughed as they saw it. Hiccup then pressed a button on both of the handles and a flaming blade popped out of both of the handles. Hiccup got in a stance, holding one sword over his head and other one in front of him. Hiccup's P.O.V. I smirked under my mask as I watched their shocked expression. The weapon I am holding is called Inferno. It's an invention of mine and my primary weapon. Over time I built multiple copies of it and began dual-wielding two of them. One of the guards came forward, attempting to strike me with his sword. But I blocked the hit with both of my swords and pushed him away as I kicked him in his stomach, making him fall on the floor. Two more ran towards me with their axes and swords. I dodged the axe swing and deflected the sword hit with Inferno. I quickly did a spinning hook kick which hit the sword wielder, throwing him towards a nearby cage. The other guy tried to strike me with his axe again, but I stepped aside and dodged the blow. Before he could bring up his axe again, I cut off the axe head with my sword. Before the guard could comprehend what just happened, I swung my sword at him. He wasn't fast enough to avoid it and got slashed across his chest. The guard backed away screaming as I kicked him onto the floor. The other guard suddenly came, trying to strike me with his sword, but I blocked it and stepped aside and slashed him across his side. The man yelled out in pain as I kicked behind his knee, dropping him on the floor and hit him behind his head, knocking him out. Suddenly someone caught me in a chokehold from behind. I quickly stabbed that person in the thigh. He let out a scream as his grip loosened. I quickly break free of the hold. Turning around, I quickly delivered 2 slashes on his chest and then knocked him out with a punch. I then heard a battle cry and looked at my right side and saw another guard charging at me with his sword. He swung his sword. I tried to dodge it but wasn't fast enough as the sword cut through my armor and made a nasty wound on my right side. It had reopened the wound Stoic gave me during my duel with him. The wound was almost healed thanks to the medicines I have, but that injury reopened it. I quickly spun around and swung my sword at his arm and injured it, making him let go of the sword, and used my other sword to quickly deliver a slash across his chest. I then did a quick spin and delivered 2 more slashes in his body, making him fall on the floor in pain. I then stomped on his head which knocked him out. I looked forward and saw some more men approaching me, but suddenly a purple light hit the floor in front of them and exploded. The blast threw them back. I looked up and saw Toothless hovering over me. He landed near me and said, "Come on, Hiccup. We don't have much time." I nodded. I turned off one Inferno and put it back in its holster and pulled out some bandages from the hidden pocket in my armor. I hurriedly shoved the bandage under my armor to cover the wound and stopped it from bleeding. After I was done, I and Toothless made our way towards the other cages. The guards tried to stop us but didn't stand a chance against me and Toothless. We kept freeing the dragons while fighting off the guards. Toothless would blast them away or fight with his claws and tail. As for me, I fought with them with my swords. After some time there was only one cage left. By this time both me and Toothless were injured and exhausted. Toothless had some cuts on his arms and some bruises, while I had received another butt on my left bicep, just above my tattoo, and was shot in the shoulder with an arrow. I went over to the cage to open it while Toothless covered me. Someone had thrown a net on Toothless and had sealed his mouth with a bowler. Toothless! I screamed out and tried to run over to him, but just then I was tackled by a guard. He pulled out his sword and proceeded to kill me. But just then we heard a loud dragon roar and he was snatched away by a dragon. Not just any dragon, a Stormcutter dragon. I looked towards Toothless and saw the men who had trapped Toothless were fighting a masked figure. The Stormcutter rider. The thought rang through my mind. He or she is a mysterious person I met a couple years ago during a dragon rescue mission. Ever since then I have seen this person on some other rescue missions too. This person is also a dragon rider and rides a Stormcutter. We never had a conversation, because they always disappear with their Stormcutter. The Stormcutter rider easily defeated those men with their staff and raised their staff in the air. Hey! I yelled out to gain their attention and hastily got up and ran towards that person. But before I could reach them, the Stormcutter came and snatched that person and flew away in the night sky. I just saw them for a while before turning my attention back to Toothless. I quickly freed him and together we freed the last dragons. I then noticed one of the men regaining his consciousness. I stormed over to him and grabbed him by his throat and took him over to the side of the ship, where I pinned him. I pulled out Inferno and activated it. Holding the blade close to his face I said, I will only ask once, so answer me truthfully. And then I may spare your life. Where is Drago? The man fearfully looked at me and said he didn't know about Drago. Stop lying to me. Where is he? I shouted at him, holding the blade of the Inferno closer to his face. Please. Please. I swear upon my dead mother I don't know where he is. The man said fearfully. Then what use are you to me? I coldly said and threw him on the floor. Please. Have mercy. The man pleaded while trying to crawl away. Memories of the past came flooding back in my mind as I felt my hatred increase for that man. Sorry. All out of mercy. I coldly told him and then slit his throat. I watched the man die. People like him deserved to die. Especially after what they did to her. Hiccup. Toothless called out. This brought me out of my trance. Let's go. I told him as I hopped on his back. Toothless shot up in the air. Before leaving, Toothless shot a few plasma blasts at the ship, which put it on fire. I glanced at the burning ship once before looking away. Chapter 14, Convincing. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Astrid was pacing in front of Hiccup's house. She was extremely worried about the said dragon rider. Her friends were also concerned, for both her and Hiccup. They were inside the living room talking to each other to keep their mind occupied. Astrid. She heard Ruffnut call out for her. Astrid looked at Ruffnut, who was standing at the entrance of the house. Stop worrying, Astrid. He will come back. I am sure of it. Ruffnut told her. I know that, Ruffnut, but I can't seem to stop worrying about him. It's already midnight and he hasn't returned yet. Astrid replied as bad thoughts flooded her mind. Just then they heard a familiar screech. Toughnut, Fishlegs and Snotlout rushed out of the house and joined Astrid and Ruffnut as they also heard the screech. They looked up in the sky and after a while they noticed Toothless coming towards them. They all slightly backed away as Toothless landed in front of them. Astrid gasped as she saw Hiccup dismounting Toothless. Both the dragon and his rider were injured. Hiccup. Astrid yelled out as she saw Hiccup losing his balance. She quickly dashed towards him and caught him before he could fall. What happened to you? Astrid asked as she put his arm around her neck and hoisted him up as Hiccup struggled to stay on his feet. Prepare. Infirmary. Hiccup gasped out while taking deep breaths. Toothless and Astrid helped Hiccup inside the house and took him to the said room. The infirmary was a big room in the mansion where Hiccup kept his medical supplies. Like a healer's hut, this room was used to treat injuries. Toughnut, Ruffnut and Snotlout would often get sent there after getting themselves injured while causing trouble. Hiccup, Astrid and Toothless along with the rest of the gang. Astrid helped Hiccup sit down on one of the beds. Astrid and others backed away a bit as Hiccup put off his cloak and chestplate, leaving him only with the shirt he was wearing. The bandage which was covering the wound on his side was completely drenched with blood. Hiccup removed it and saw how bad the wound was. "It's worse than I expected. I have to seal it." Hiccup mumbled and then looked up. "Astrid. Bring me a metal rod. You will find one in one of those cabinets." Hiccup ordered Astrid as he pointed at the cabinets in the room. Astrid nodded and quickly went over to the cabinets to find the said item. Hiccup then looked at Snotlout. "Snotlout. Bring me a bucket of water and a rag," he ordered his cousin. The raven-haired Viking nods and quickly rushed out. Hiccup then tore down his shirt and removed it from his body and took a piece of cloth to stop the bleeding. The gang gasped as they noticed other bruises on Hiccup's body. Astrid finally found the metal rod Hiccup asked for and brought it to Hiccup. Hiccup then called for Toothless. Toothless quickly came beside him. Just then Snotlout came back with a bucket filled with water. Hiccup thanked him as he took the bucket from Snotlout and placed it on a table beside his bed. Hiccup then took a big piece of cloth and dipped it in the water bucket, and then he took another piece of cloth and wrapped it around one end of the rod and held it in his left hand and pointed it towards Toothless. "You know what to do, bud," Hiccup told Toothless. Toothless nodded and opened his mouth and ignited a plasma blast. But except for shooting it out, Toothless held it in his mouth as Hiccup used the heat of the plasma blast to heat up the metal rod. After a while the rod was glowing bright orange. Hiccup took a piece of leather and bit on it and quickly pressed the hot metal against his wound. Hiccup held in his screams of pain as he bit on the piece of leather as the wound on his side burnt and was finally completely closed. Hiccup then quickly shoved the rod in the bucket and took the drenched piece of cloth and pressed it on the closed and burnt wound. He let out a shaky breath as the pain subdued and water prevented the burn from getting worse. After the pain was completely gone, Hiccup removed the cloth and put it back in the bucket. There should be some string and needle in that cabinet, along with some green jars and bandages. Can you bring it to me?" Hiccup asked the gang, pointing towards a cabinet. Astrid and Toughnut quickly went to the cabinet and brought Hiccup the stuff he asked for. Hiccup took a roll of bandage and poured some foul-smelling liquid from the green jar in some small pieces of bandages and then used those to cover Toothless' cuts and then wrapped bandages around those wounds. After he was done tending Toothless' wounds, he did the same with the sealed wound on his side and the wound on his shoulder. The only injury left to treat was the one on his left arm. He took the string and needle and proceeded to stitch the wound. "Here, let me help you," Astrid suddenly said and went over to him and took the needle from him and started stitching his wound. "What were you doing to get yourself this injured?" Roughnut suddenly asked. "Dragon rescue," Hiccup replied. "Oh." Just then Luna came inside the infirmary. "Toothless." "Hiccup. What happened to you two?" Luna gasped as she saw both of them. Hey," Toothless awkwardly said, trying not to get his mate worrying too much. "Don't hey me. What in the name of the sky were you two doing?" Luna angrily asked. "Luna. It was just a normal rescue mission. It's just, the enemies were much more combative. But we managed to make it out in one piece," Hiccup told her. "Okay," Luna said, letting the information sink in. "Hey, why don't you get back to our cave? I will join you in a minute. And then we can spend some quality time together," Toothless suggested her. Luna looked away from the black-scaled dragon and quickly left the room. Hiccup chuckled at this. "Real smooth, bud. Real smooth," Hiccup told Toothless between his chuckles. Toothless just gave a toothy smile and left the place. Hiccup looked around and saw the gang staring at him. "What? I can understand and speak the language of dragons," Hiccup told them, feeling a bit awkward under their stare. "You know what, I am not gonna bother questioning about this anymore," Astrid said and went back to stitching the wound. Once it was done, he wrapped bandages around the wound. He moved his arm a bit to see if it was loose or uncomfortable. Once satisfied, he got up from the bed and stood on his feet. But suddenly Hiccup felt lightheaded and almost fell until Astrid rushed on his side and caught him before he could fall. "Thanks, Astrid," Hiccup thanked her and then looked at the rest of the gang and "Thank you guys for helping me around. You all should go to sleep now," Hiccup told them. They all agreed and headed back to their rooms. Astrid helped Hiccup to reach his room. He was feeling a bit drowsy because of the blood loss. Astrid struggled to carry him as Hiccup was slowly losing his consciousness. By the time they reached his bedroom, Hiccup had almost passed out. She dragged him to his bed and proceeded to lay him down. But to her misfortune, she tripped and fell on the bed, followed by Hiccup, who fell on top of her. "Hiccup! Get off me!" Astrid hissed, trying not to yell. But Hiccup was already asleep and didn't respond. Astrid finally managed to push him off her with some struggle and sat up. She looked at Hiccup and smiled as she saw how peaceful he looked. She leaned down and kissed him on his cheek and then got off the bed and proceeded to leave the room. "Good night, Hiccup," Astrid said as she glanced at the sleeping form of Hiccup while standing in the entrance of the room. And then she left. At morning, when Hiccup woke up, it was almost noon. He got off from his bed, ignoring the pain caused by his wounds. He made his way downstairs and saw Ruffnut chatting with Astrid in the living room. "Good morning," Hiccup loudly said as he entered the room. "Good morning, Hiccup." The girls greeted him as they noticed him. "Where are the others?" Hiccup asked as he took a seat beside Astrid. Tough and Snotlout went out for a hike and Fishlegs went to that dragon mountain to gather some knowledge and wisdom. Ruffnut said and air quoted the word Dragon Mountain. "Aha!" Hiccup replied. As for Astrid, she was trying not to look at his face. She had a hint of pink on her cheeks as the events of the previous night flashed in her mind. "You should get yourself freshened up and eat something. I don't think you have eaten anything since yesterday morning," Ruffnut suddenly said. "Yeah, you're right. I am starving right now," Hiccup said as he left the room. The girls watched him as he left. After he was out of their view, Ruffnut turned towards Astrid. "So, what happened between you two?" Ruffnut asked Astrid. What do you mean, Ruff?" Astrid asked back in shock. "Don't play dumb, Astrid. I know something must have happened between you two. Or else why were you blushing when Hiccup sat beside you?" Ruffnut said back with a smug look on her face. Astrid looked away in embarrassment as she couldn't believe Ruffnut noticed it. "So now tell me what happened between you two yesterday night. Did you two kiss? Or maybe you two got a bit passionate?" Ruffnut said as she shook her arms at the last word. Astrid's face turned bright red. She quickly said no. "Nothing like that happened. Look, while I was trying to get Hiccup to his bed, I tripped and fell on the bed with Hiccup on two of me. After which I pushed him off me and went back to my room to sleep. Nothing more happened between us. Maybe for now. But I doubt that something won't happen in future," Ruffnut slyly said, making Astrid grumble under her breath. A while later, Hiccup was sitting in the library, writing some notes in a notebook. That's when Astrid approached him, but Hiccup didn't notice her. "Who is that?" The sudden question made Hiccup almost jump out of his seat. It was Astrid who asked the question. She was apparently looking at the notebook. One of the pages had a rough sketch of the Stormcutter rider and other page had some notes regarding the said mystery person. "Is he one of your allies?" Astrid asked again, looking at Hiccup. Hiccup restored his composure and said, "No. To be honest, I don't even know if this person is an ally or an enemy. A couple years ago I stumbled upon him. And ever since then we have had some brief meetings, but unfortunately I never had a chance to have a conversation. He's also a dragon rider like me and rescues dragons." "Wait, I thought you were the only dragon rider out there," Astrid said in shock. "So I thought until I met this person," Hiccup said. "Aha. Well, Hiccup, I wanted to talk to you about something," Astrid said. "Okay. What do you want to talk about?" Astrid sat down on a chair in front of Hiccup and then said, "Can you teach me and the gang how to train and ride a dragon?" Hiccup looked at her in shock and asked, "Can I ask why?" "Well, you see," Astrid began explaining, "I talked with the gang and they all agree with the fact that dragons are just misunderstood. And they are willing to be more interactive with the dragons. And I thought, what better way would it be than teaching them how to ride a dragon? Astrid, it's not easy. Dragons are extremely powerful creatures. At the wrong hands they can cause unimaginable destruction. I don't question your judgment or their friendly feelings towards dragons. But I can't risk anyone learning how to tame a dragon and use that knowledge to cause chaos. Hiccup told her. But think about it, Hiccup, you wanted peace between dragons and Vikings. This can be the first step to do it. You can convince the rest of the Burg by showing them the gang riding their own dragons. And with that you can convince other clans too. Astrid suggested. I still wouldn't consider doing that. As I said, I am not willing to take a risk that big. Hiccup dismissed her. But Hiccup Astrid tried to say but got cut off by Hiccup. I don't want to talk about this, Astrid. So can you please drop the subject? Hiccup rudely told her. Astrid's face fell and she got up and left the room. Hiccup looked at her as she left, regretting his rude behavior. He contemplated the idea. It's worth a shot, but what if things like that happen again? Hiccup thought. But peace was what she wanted. She gave her life for it. I had taught my allies how to train dragons and it turned out well, maybe it's worth taking the shot. Hiccup finally decided. A while later. Astrid was sitting in the living room. Her friends all had gathered in the room. So, what did he say? Ruffnut asked her. He immediately disagreed. Even got a little angry when I tried to convince him. Astrid replied. Damn. I really wanted to ride a dragon. Tuffnut said. Excuse me. Someone suddenly said behind them. They jumped on their feet and looked back and saw it was Hiccup. Hiccup walked inside the room and said, a while ago Astrid came to me requesting me to teach you all how to train a dragon. An idea with which I don't exactly agree with. He looked at them and let out a sigh and continued, but after a lot of thinking, I have decided that. The gang looked at him with anticipation. I will teach you how to train dragons. Hiccup finished. Wait. For real? Tuffnut excitedly asked. Hiccup smiled and said yes. I always wanted peace among Vikings and dragons. It can be a small step towards it. Astrid smiled as he said that as the others cheered. So, when do we start? Astrid asked as she stepped forward. From tomorrow. Hiccup said and then left. Notes. Hey guys. Commander Alpha here. Hope you liked the chapter. Here's a quick, little question. The Quiet Kid vs the Anime Kid. Who would win in a fight? Tell me in the comments. Bye guys. Alpha out. Peace. Winking face, winking face, winking face. Chapter 15, Dragon Training Part 1. Chapter text. As the morning came, the gang quickly made their way towards the arena where Hiccup is supposed to meet them. All of them were very excited at the thought of riding a dragon. Arriving at the arena they saw Hiccup waiting for them. He was in his casual clothes and Toothless was standing beside him. Good morning, Hiccup. They greeted him as they stood in the middle of the arena. Good morning everyone. Hiccup greeted them back. Now as you know, your training starts from today. Hiccup began as he began pacing in front of them. From today, you're going to learn how to tame a dragon and ride one. Now, to tame a dragon you first have to form a bond with them. It's the most important part in taming a dragon. A bond is formed by showing a dragon that you trust them. Once the bond is formed, you can begin training with them and strengthen your bond through the training. Hiccup explained. Okay, but how are we gonna do all that? Fishlegs asked. Follow me. Hiccup said and lead them to the Dragon Mountain. Once reaching the place they were once again stunned by the sight of dragons. Hiccup led them towards a group of dragons who were playing nearby. A blue and yellow scaled Nada noticed them. The Nada walked towards them. This Nada was none other than Stormfly. The gang halted as they saw her approaching them. Hiccup suddenly grabbed Astrid's hand and they walked towards Stormfly. Closing the distance between them and the dragon, Hiccup proceeded to put Astrid's hand on Stormfly's snout. Stormfly suddenly let out a low growl which freaked out Astrid a bit as she tried to pull her hand away. But Hiccup stopped her and put her hand on Stormfly's snout. Astrid was a little scared at first, but after a few moments her fear went away as she looked into the eyes of the Nada. Others who were watching her could feel something being exchanged between the dragon and the shield maiden in front of it. Do you feel it? Hiccup asked. Yes. Astrid said in amazement. Yes, I do. Astrid smiled at the beast in front of her as she could feel a bond forming between them. She touched Stormfly's face with her free hand and Stormfly happily chirped at that. She in return licked Astrid's face. Astrid backed away a bit, trying to clear the dragon saliva from her face as she giggled. The gang and Hiccup also laughed at that. Looks like you two bonded quite well. Hiccup commented. Yeah. What's his name? Astrid asked. Astrid, it's a she and her name is Stormfly. Hiccup told her. Oh, that's a nice name for such a beautiful creature. Astrid said, petting her dragon. Yup. Now let's go. The others need their own dragons too. Hiccup announced. Rest of the gang grinned and excitedly looked at the dragons playing around. After some time all of them had a dragon for themselves. Tough Nut Rough Nut ended up sharing Buff and Belch. They bonded quite quickly. Probably because of their similar personality and the friendship they built over the period of time the twins were here. Fishlegs bonded with Meatlug. And finally, against all odds, Snotlout somehow managed to bond with Hookfang. It was still beyond Hiccup how Snotlout managed to do it. After they were done bonding with their dragons, Hiccup brought them back to his forge. What are we doing here, Hiccup? Aren't we supposed to learn how to ride dragons now? Snotlout asked. Yes. And that's why you're gonna need these. Hiccup said as he came out of the forge, carrying multiple saddles. This will make the flight more comfortable. Hiccup said as he put down the saddles on the ground. Whoa. Where did you get these? Tough Nut asked in awe. Oh, these. I had some spare saddles laying around. Thought why not put them to good use. Hiccup told him. So when are we gonna start the training? Astrid asked. Considering the fact that you all now have bonded with a dragon, I say we begin today. Hiccup said with a grin. Chapter 16, Dragon Training Part 2. Chapter Text. It's been a few weeks since Hiccup started the training of the gang. He was quite impressed with how fast they were learning. Just in 2 weeks they were able to safely fly their dragon around the island. They also learned about how to take care of their dragons and their eating habits and some other necessary things. After a few more days Hiccup began training them to fly their dragons in higher altitude. The progress was remarkably fast. Astrid's and Hiccup's relationship also had improved a lot. Astrid could be often found hanging out with Hiccup. She would help him around whenever she could and they would talk with each other at a cliff near the sea while watching sunset. Like every day the gang were gathered around the dining table, eating their breakfast. After they were done they quickly headed towards the training arena to meet up with Hiccup. I wonder what Hiccup's gonna teach us today. Tough Nut said. Who knows? Hiccup says that we are learning remarkably fast. So I think it can be some important lesson. Astrid said. Whatever it is I bet I can easily master it. Snotlout boasted. Yeah right. Fishlegs sarcastically said, making Snotlout frown in disappointment. Once reaching the arena they saw Hiccup standing there. He was wearing a leather armor and was putting on a shoulder plate. Toothless was standing beside him and was looking excited some reason. Hiccup. Astrid called out for him. Hiccup looked at the gang and said, oh, hey guys. So what's up? Are preparing for today's training? Rough Nut asked him. Too much of something is not good. Hiccup simply told her, returning his attention to attaching the shoulder plate. What? Astrid asked. You guys have trained a lot, you need to rest. So today's a day off. Wait really? Snotlout and Tough Nut excitedly asked. Yes. Do whatever you want. You can take the dragons for a flight too. Just don't cause any disaster. Hiccup told them. What are you going to do? Fishlegs asked him. It's a day off, Fishlegs. I am also on vacation. Hiccup told him as he made his way towards Toothless and got on top of the dragon. The dragon-human duo then launched into the air, leaving the gang with their thoughts. Day off. Tough Nut excitedly said. We can fly the dragons. Rough Nut said after him. This is gonna be fun. The twins yelled out in joy as they headed out. Meanwhile with Hiccup and Toothless. Hiccup's P.O.V. A /n play where no one goes for better experience. I and Toothless were flying over the sea in a high speed. We suddenly came across a group of thunder drums. We dipped, rolled and dived over them to avoid them and shot up towards the sky. As we reached above the clouds, Toothless slowed down. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath as a light breeze hit my face. The feeling of flying at such high up in the sky was amazing. Toothless soared over the clouds as I spread my arms, feeling the clouds brush against my hands. I then grabbed onto the handles on the saddle as we dived down towards the sea. As we came closer to the ocean we quickly shot up towards the sky again as Toothless started spinning to make the experience more enjoyable. As we reached higher and higher Toothless stopped spinning and we free-fallied downwards as Toothless and I let out a yell out of joy. And then we began gliding around and soon we were joined by a group of monstrous nightmares and timberjacks. What do you think, bud? Wanna do that again? I excitedly asked Toothless. Hiccup. You do remember right what happened last time? Toothless grumbles in protest. Toothless. It'll be fine. I reassured him. I unhooked myself from the saddle. Ready? I asked. Toothless snorted unenthusiastically and that was cue for me as I slided off of Toothless, peeling away from him, yelling in joy as I plummeted. Toothless soon dove after me. We spiraled through the air, face to face. Toothless was having fun, despite himself. When we see the ocean, I slipped my forearms through a pair of tucked leather flaps, and yanked them out, unfurling sheets of leather hidden in my suit as I extended my arms. They caught the wind and snapped like wings, and sent me gliding. Toothless unfolded his wings, too, catching up with me. The freedom is palpable. I and Toothless are, for the moment, the same. Feeling the same rush of adrenaline. Independently together. We plunge past the clouds, splitting apart then crossing paths again. This is amazing. I yelled out as I felt a rush of excitement flow through me. Suddenly a cloud layer washed past, exposing a towering rock formation, dead ahead. Oh no! I shrieked but managed to maneuver myself and dodge it. Toothless soon caught up with me and I glided over him and slowly brought myself down on his back and hooked myself back with the saddle. We then flew towards the jungle on the island and made our way towards a specific place in middle of the jungle over a hill. It was a small clearing with a small spring flowing into a pond nearby. As we landed there I quickly got off Toothless and put off the clothing of my upper body. I and Toothless raced to the pond and jumped in. We began playing splashing water at each other. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I exclaimed as Toothless pushed me down, making me lay on the bank of the pond. He's down. And it's ugly. I said as Toothless playfully hit me with his paws as I tried to defend myself while chuckling. Dragons and Vikings, enemies again, locked in combat to the bitter but suddenly Toothless dropped on top of me, his head hitting my chest as he pinned me down earth. I playfully groaned as I pretended to be unconscious. But then Toothless started to lick me. Gah! I groaned as I got up. You know that doesn't wash out. Toothless just chuckled at that so collected some of the saliva and threw it at him, hitting him in the head. Toothless just rolled his eyes and whipped it off with his paw. We then bathed and cleaned ourselves and then laid down on the ground beside the lake, watching the sky as the sun dried us. So, how are you enjoying the company of your new friends? Toothless asked me. Oh well, they're not bad actually. Snotlout's ego is pretty annoying at times but it's more tolerable now. Tough Nut and Rough Nut are still disastrous. Fish Legs is fun to talk with. And Astrid, well what can I say, except she's perfect. I said. Isn't Astrid that girl you had wanted to become mates with? Well yeah, but she's way out of league for me. Hey. At least give it a try. I have seen how women go crazy to just have a moment with you. And she looks like a friendly girl to me. Toothless, Astrid isn't any girl. She's literally the most badass girl in Berk, probably in whole archipelago. You're saying the great Hiccup who can defeat beasts like Red Death doesn't have enough courage to ask a girl out? Oh come on Toothless. No Hiccup. Listen to me. You just can't keep living like this. You need some flair in your life. And trust me, I know that girl is what you need. So you better go and ask her out by tomorrow or no more flying for you. Oh come on. Really? Yes. And I am putting my paw down. Toothless said as he got up on his paws. Okay. Okay. Fine. I will do it. But if anything goes wrong it's on you. I told him as I sat up. Don't worry brother. You won't regret it. Toothless said with a wink. Chapter 17, Dragon Training Part 3. Chapter Text. The gang were gathered on a cliff near the seashore on the opposite side of the island. They were all standing with their dragons by their side. After spending the whole yesterday having fun, Hiccup had gathered them up for one last training session. The twins did cause some trouble but it wasn't much of a big deal while Snotlout had his backside burned by Hookfang at some certain occasions. Hiccup was standing in front of them with Toothless by his side. I hope you all had a good time yesterday. Hiccup began now today, you're all going to receive your final training. Wait what? Astrid asked in shock. Today is your final training. You all have learned everything you would need to become a dragon rider. And after this one last training you will be completely ready. Hiccup said. The gang cheered at this. So what's today's training? Ruffnut excitedly asked. Hiccup smiled and said it's what I call the trust training. In this you have to free fall from your dragon in high altitude and have to trust your dragon to catch you before you fall. What? They exclaimed. You heard me. Hiccup replied calmly, from what I had seen, the problem most of the people face in flying with their dragons is mostly because deep inside, they still didn't trust their dragon. Hiccup took a deep breath and continued, so I want you to free fall, and then your dragon will catch you. This trust exercise is important to deepen the bond you have with your dragon, and your dragon with you. He then pointed to the gang, and while you all have been doing great flying with your dragons, doing this exercise wouldn't hurt. He then addressed them all seriously. Besides, it's better for you to train your heart with free falling here in a controlled situation, instead of falling in an uncontrolled situation like in a war or dangerous storm. Well, it sure would be scary to fall in a fight like that if we haven't experienced any fall yet. Astrid said in agreement. After all, if we haven't experienced what falling from our dragon's back is like, then we wouldn't be able to think clearly when we fell off later on. She mused. She looked at Hiccup and said, all right, I will try it. I guess that's true. Fishlegs said in agreement. Slowly, but surely they all agreed to try. Hiccup gave them a demonstration. He flew up high with Toothless and slipped down from the saddle. As he was falling, Toothless chased behind him and soon caught up with him as he positioned himself under his rider with his back facing the said human. Hiccup grabbed onto the saddle and pulled himself back on Toothless as they flew back to the gang. Astrid was the first to go. She flew up high with Stormfly, before jumping off of Stormfly's back. It seemed that Stormfly didn't get any warning, since she squawked in surprise, before diving to catch Astrid with her feet. Then, with an impressive maneuver, she threw Astrid up while making a loop, as Astrid managed to get on her back. Wow, that was one crazy move. Astrid exclaimed as she took deep breaths to calm her nerves as she and Stormfly flew back towards the gang. That was awesome, Astrid. Ruffnut exclaimed in awe. Thanks. I was surprised when Stormfly suddenly threw me like that, but I knew that she wasn't going to let me get harmed in any way. Astrid said as her breathing became normal. And that's the trust. Hiccup said with a smug smirk, if you didn't trust Stormfly then you would have doubted her actions by now. But instead you knew that she didn't want to harm you. Astrid heard all that in awe. Although she did trust Stormfly with her life, she was surprised to hear that, since she didn't think about it that way. She thought that Stormfly did it only so that she could get to Stormfly's back again. Snotlout, hearing all this, immediately pulled Hookfang to fly higher. Then, when he thought that it was high enough, he slid off of Hookfang's back. Unfortunately for him, Hookfang was distracted because he happened to see some female monstrous nightmare flying nearby that time, so he wasn't aware that Snotlout wasn't on his back anymore. Not feeling the trust, Snotlout yelled out in fear when he saw that Hookfang wasn't coming for him. Hearing Snotlout cry out snapped Hookfang's attention to the falling man, and he immediately dove to catch him and then slowly approached the group of riders. Hookfang dropped him on the ground. Not feeling the trust, Snotlout repeated his words as he glared at Hiccup as he got back on his feet. Idiot. Toothless snorted at the Viking. Snotlout. Hiccup began as he sighed and made a calm down motion with his hand. You need to understand that Hook Fang is easily distracted, just like you. When he is relaxing, you need to warn him first before you free falling, or he would become distracted by the time you slid off, like just now. He told his cousin gently. Beside to trust your dragon, you also need to understand your dragon. Hook Fang is what you would say scatterbrained for a human. Sorry, Hook Fang, but it's the truth. He added the last part since Hook Fang was growling at him, making the dragon huffed in defeat. He's scatterbrained, so he's easily distracted. Hiccup continued. In a bad situation, he would be on guard since anything could happen, thus he would be aware if you happen to fall off of his back. When he's relaxing like now though, you need to warn him before doing something, or else he might get distracted by something else. I see. Snotlout mumbled as his glare lessened as he looked down at Hook Fang. Sorry for not realizing that, Hook Fang. He whispered to his dragon, since he was embarrassed to say it out loud. Hook Fang purred in response. After the incident with Snotlout, the rest of the trust exercise went well. The gang had deepened their bond with their dragons. Toothless was proud of his human brother, and he made sure that Hiccup knew it by purring while giving his human his famous gummy smile. Hiccup grinned back at him, happiness and hope shining in his eyes. Some time later, Astrid was playing fetch with Stormfly near the stream behind Hiccup's house. She threw the tree branch she was using to play with Stormfly as far as she could. Stormfly soon chased behind the tree branch which had seemingly disappeared from the view. Astrid smirked as she saw Stormfly trying to find it. Hey Astrid. Someone called her. Astrid looked at her side and saw it was Hiccup. Hey Hiccup. She greeted him as he approached her. Hey, I was wondering. Would you like to go out with me? Hiccup shyly asked her. Astrid was stunned for a moment as she couldn't believe that her crush was asking her out. Is it a date? She asked. What? No, I mean yes, I mean Hiccup groaned as he struggled to form a sentence. Astrid chuckled at this and said I would love to. Wait, really? Yeah. Where are we going? Hiccup smiled and said that's a surprise. Be ready around noon. I will take you to the place. And with that Hiccup left that place, leaving Astrid curious about the upcoming date. Chapter 18, The Date. Chapter text. Astrid was standing outside of Hiccup's house. She had told Rough Nut about her upcoming date with the said dragon rider, and Rough Nut had agreed to keep the rest of the gang busy so that they wouldn't interrupt her date. She was dressed in her normal clothes since the only extra clothes she had were the ones provided by Hiccup. She was starting to get a little impatient as Hiccup was nowhere to be seen. She suddenly heard some flapping sounds over her and looked up to see Toothless hovering over her. Toothless then landed in front of her and Hiccup was on his back, wearing a casual outfit as well. Hey Astrid. He greeted her and she returned the gesture. Sorry if I kept you waiting. Hiccup quickly said as he helped her hop on Toothless' back. It's okay Hiccup. So we're going? Astrid asked. It's a surprise, Astrid. You have to wait to find out. Hiccup told her as he mounted Toothless and the dragon shot up towards the sky. Astrid yelped and tightly wrapped her arms around his chest as Toothless was flying at a much higher speed than she was used to, but she soon got used to it and loosened her grip on Hiccup. Unnoticed by Astrid, Hiccup glared at his draconic friend as he knew Toothless did that on purpose. Feeling his glare, Toothless twisted his head to have a good look at his rider and gave him a gummy smile. Hiccup just rolled his eyes and then they focused back on flying. After a long fight they had finally reached their destination. It was a small island a bit far away from Hiccup's island. They landed on a hill near the seashore. Hiccup got down first and then helped Astrid to dismount Toothless. He then led Astrid to a tree. Astrid gasped once they reached it. Under the tree, in front of them was a picnic with an actual picnic basket on a red blanket. A picnic? Astrid said in shock as she looked at Hiccup. You made us a picnic. Hiccup shylly rubbed the back of his neck as he said yeah. Sorry, couldn't come up with anything more fancy. Hiccup, it's amazing. Astrid assured him. To be honest, it's great for a first date. Wait, you never went on a date before? Hiccup asked her in shock. No. Most of the boys back on Berk mostly were jerks and only wanted me for my body. So I had rejected most of them. Even had to send some of them to Gothi's hut. Both of them had a good laugh after hearing that. What about you? Astrid asked him. Well, I did a few times, but none of them were exactly my type. Most of the girls out there either wanted me only for my fame or to leech off me. Hiccup said. Oh. After a brief pause Astrid said, let's get started with the date, shall we? And with that they sat down on the blanket and began eating the food Hiccup had brought for the date. Toothless was smart enough to leave the two young adults alone as he flew away but stayed close by. Astrid and Hiccup were silently eating, enjoying the scenery around them and the peace they had between them. Hiccup had prepared some steak, baked potatoes, fish and an apple pie for them. He also brought a small barrel of mead and 2 jugs. Wow, you made an apple pie? Astrid said in shock. Yeah. I know it's your favorite. So, I made one for you. Hiccup said. Thanks Hic. Astrid thanked him as she took a bite of the pie and moaned in delight at the taste. After some time of staying silent, Hiccup decided to break the silence. So, how have you been doing since, I left? Hiccup began. Well, things haven't been that bad. And ever since you took down the Red Death, Berk has been doing fairly well since dragons stopped raiding us. I managed to finish my training and become a shield maiden. Astrid said. Oh, that's great. You always wanted to become a shield maiden. Hiccup congratulated her. Yeah, how about you? I know you've pretty much become a legend now, but how have things been since you ran away? Well, the first couple of weeks had been rough. Hiccup admitted, but I slowly started to get used to it. Things started to get better after me and Toothless found this place. Hiccup took a deep breath and continued, we had a place to call home. Soon made some great allies. Even some of my enemies joined me. Ah, looks like you have been having a satisfying life too. Like nothing can go wrong with it. Yeah. Hiccup looked saddened for a while but quickly hid it before Astrid could notice it. How do you think everything would turn out if you hadn't left? Astrid asked as she looked at the horizon as she took a sip of her mead. I don't know. Maybe Stoic would have used Toothless to find the dragon's nest, or worse, may have killed him. Maybe I would have done something crazy in an attempt to prove that dragons are misunderstood. Hiccup said and chuckled at the end. Well, at least you would have had both of your feet. Astrid jokes. Well, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Hiccup replied with a chuckle and they both laughed. You haven't changed that much, Hiccup. Just got hotter. Astrid said. Yeah, I guess. Wait, you think I am hot? Well, yeah. I mean, look at you. You might not be buff, but damn, you're toned. I bet those abs are as hard as rock. And I think there's something harder below those abs. Astrid teased him. Hiccup looked away from her as his cheeks turned bright red. This only amused Astrid further. What happened, Hic? Did I make you uncomfortable? Astrid asked in a husky voice as she enjoyed Hiccup's reaction at her teasing. If this is how you wanna play, then okay. I can play dirty too. Hiccup thought. Well, Astrid, you aren't in too bad shape. I bet you can stretch really well. If you know what I mean. Hiccup said with a smirk. Now this was Astrid's turn to blush as she completely understood what Hiccup meant. Then they noticed that the sun was about to set. It was fun and all, but we should wrap it up. Astrid said. Yeah, sure. Hiccup agreed and they got up. Hiccup called for Toothless. In a few moments Toothless came and landed in front of them. Astrid helped Hiccup to pack everything up and then they mounted Toothless. They then shot up towards the sky. Astrid admired her surroundings as she watched the sun set. Noticing that, Hiccup said, Astrid, would you like to go on a ride? Well, it wouldn't hurt to go, I guess. Astrid said. After hearing that, Hiccup patted Toothless on his head. Toothless, understanding what to do, began flying faster. This caused Astrid to shriek and hug Hiccup tightly as she buried her head in the crook of his shoulder. Toothless. Hiccup growled in Dragonese. Understanding he messed up, Toothless gave a sheepish smile and flew slower. They level off and head up into the clouds. Astrid opens her eyes again, and looks out over a world she'd never dreamed of. She reaches out and touches clouds, pierces columns ablaze in golden hues, and floats over a vast, alien skyscape. Her terror is replaced by wonder as she looked around, taking a note of all the other dragons flying around, making the scenery more beautiful. She grins, despite herself. Toothless rises above a blanket of cloud and levels off under a starry sky. They emerge from a blanket of clouds under the dancing northern lights, shimmering in ribbons across the vast sky. The new perspective is breathtaking. Astrid tucks her arms into Hiccup's vest, burying her chin into his shoulder. The moment is not lost on either of them. Hiccup smiles nervously. Toothless climbs past some tall peaks and heads out over open water. After some time they fly back to Hiccup's island. After landing on their cliffside, Hiccup hopped off Toothless and then helped Astrid dismount. After dismissing Toothless for the night, they left that place and walked towards Hiccup's house as Toothless flew to his cave. "Thanks for tonight, Hiccup," Astrid told him. "You're welcome, Astrid," Hiccup replied. They then stopped and looked at each other. They looked at each other's eyes and time seemed to stop around them. Suddenly they didn't know what was happening around them. They could feel their faces getting closer. They were just inches apart, when Hiccup made the first move and closed the distance between them by pressing his lips on her. Hiccup closed his eyes as he felt himself getting lost at the feel of Astrid's soft, warm lips. But after a few moments he realized what he was doing and quickly pulled away from her. Hiccup felt ashamed and sad as he looked at Astrid, who was staring at him with shock. "Hey Astrid, I am really sorry. I don't know what came over me. I just looked in your eyes and I don't know what I was doing." Hiccup babbled out, trying to explain himself. "Hiccup." Astrid cut him off. "Huh?" Hiccup looked at her in confusion. "Shut up," Astrid told him before grabbing the hem of his shirt and pulling him towards her as she smashed her lips on his. It started a bit rough but soon got adjusted to it. They stood there kissing each other. Astrid's one hand fisted onto Hiccup's shirt, as her other hand tangled itself in Hiccup's auburn hair, while Hiccup wrapped one of his arms around her waist, pulling her closer to him as he cupped her face with his free hand. They kept kissing until they ran out of breath and only then they pulled away. They rested their foreheads together as they took deep breaths while smiling at each other. "I like you, Hiccup. I like you a lot," Astrid confessed. "I like you too, Astrid," Hiccup told her, and they two went in for another kiss. Chapter 19, Sick Dragons. Chapter text. It's been almost a month since their date. Although Hiccup and Astrid tried to keep it a secret, somehow Ruffnut managed to learn about their relationship and quickly spread it among the others. It would be an understatement to say the others were shocked. Fishlegs was happy about them. Tough Nut, well, he kept pondering Hiccup for advice on how to get a girl. As for Snotlout, he was clearly shaken by the news. He tried to throw a tantrum, but at the end accepted it. Ruffnut on the other hand would never miss a chance to tease them. Hiccup and Astrid slowly got used to it. At the present time the said couple were walking around the Dragon Mountain, chatting with each other and enjoying the moments of peace. And then Toothless took it personally and did a backflip, making me fall down in the pond. Hiccup enthusiastically told her. Astrid laughed at that. It took her some time to control her laughter and then she said, "I can't believe you two would do something like that. Hey, I might be the legendary Knight Rider, but it doesn't hurt to have some fun once in a while," Hiccup told her, and they shared another laugh. Suddenly a cry of a dragon caught their attention. They looked at the direction where the sound came from and once locating the source they quickly went over there. Once reaching there they found some dragons surrounding a Typhoomerang. It was lying on the ground and by the looks it seemed something was causing it a great amount of pain. The dragons looked concerned about their friend's situation. Once they noticed Hiccup there they quickly stepped aside to let Hiccup have a good look on the Typhoomerang. Hiccup kneeled beside it as he examined the Typhoomerang. But soon another cry startled him. He looked around and found another dragon crashing on the ground. Hiccup looked around in panic as he found more sick dragons. Some time later, Hiccup was frantically flipping through the pages of the book in his hand. There were more books on the table. Some were lying open while the others were closed. Hiccup was currently in the library, looking for something in the various books that he had gathered on the table. The gang was also present in the room. All of them seemed worried. Especially Astrid, who was looking at her boyfriend with concern. "Hiccup, what's happening to the dragons?" Fishlegs asked him. "That's an old disease, Fish. It only affects the dragons, causing excruciating pain and exhaustion. It weakens their body to a level that even a normal non-fatal illness can cause them death." Hiccup informed him while continuing his search. Knowing this information made the gang gasp in shock and fear. "Are they going to be okay?" Snotlout asked. "Luckily, yes. It's not highly contagious. The sick dragons are right now being kept separate and there's a cure for it." Knowing there is a cure, everyone's face lit up. "Really?" Ruffnut asked excitedly. "Yes. It's not the first time this has happened. It happened in the past once. I found a cure for it during that time. So why don't we use it?" Astrid asked, feeling confused at why Hiccup was going through books rather than doing that. "Because I might have all the ingredients for the cure present at the island, but there is one key ingredient that is needed for it and it can only be found at a special island," Hiccup told them. His frustration could be easily noticed in his voice. The gang was in silence after learning that. After some more time of searching, Hiccup suddenly exclaimed "Aha!" and held up a folded piece of paper. He went over to another table and unfolded the paper and laid it down on the table. The gang surrounded him as he did so. "What is this?" Tuffnut asked as he studied what appeared to be a map. "It's a map, you dummy," his sister sarcastically told him as she hit him in the back of his head. "Well, I know that. I was asking what this is about," Tuffnut said as he rubbed the sore spot. "This tuff is what is going to lead me to the island where I can find the Gilmerikelbladder, the final ingredient for the cure," Hiccup said. "Gilmerikelbladder? I thought it was a myth," Fishlegs exclaimed. "It's not Fishlegs. I found it 3 years ago on this island. I was a fool to not bring back a bush of it with myself. But luckily I made this map," Hiccup told him. "How far is it from here?" Astrid asked. "Not too far actually. It takes hardly 2 days to reach there on a dragon. The distance isn't the problem. According to what I know, it only grows once in a couple years. I just hope there is enough of it to cure the sick dragons," Hiccup said. Hiccup then left the room. He dashed around the house collecting his supplies and equipment. Once done he threw the satchel over his shoulder and proceeded to exit the house. He was dressed in the leather armor he had used in his fight against Stoic. Outside Toothless was waiting for him. As Hiccup was walking towards Toothless, someone grabbed his arm. Hiccup stopped and looked back to see it was Astrid. The rest of the gang were behind her too. "If you think you're gonna do this alone then you are dead wrong, Hiccup. We are coming with you," Astrid told him. Hiccup looked in her eyes and saw determination in them. Hiccup then glanced at the others and saw that they had the same look. So he made up his mind. "Okay then. Get your dragons. The sooner we leave, the better," Hiccup told her. Astrid smiled and nodded as she let go of his arm. In a few minutes the gang was ready. They all mounted their dragons and left for their destination. Hiccup led them on this journey. The 2 days went rather smoothly. The first night they had made a stop at a small floating island. The other night they had to keep flying because they couldn't find any place to land. It was at the middle of the second day when the problem arose. The gang were flying straight towards their destination. Hiccup had estimated that they would be at their destination by noon. But after flying for some time they noticed it. Giant dark clouds were approaching them. It was clearly an indication that a storm was coming towards them. The riders looked at each other as they heard the rumbling of the thunder. Hiccup sighed and said, "We have to go through this." "What?" Snotlout screeched. "We don't have any other option, Snotlout. We can't exactly wait it out since there isn't a place nearby where we can take shelter. So we have to fly through this." Hiccup said. Looks like we really don't have an option here. Astrid said. Finally. Finally we get to do something crazy. The twins proclaimed. I am really regretting coming here. Fishlegs mumbled. They flew their dragons straight into the storm clouds. The rain hitting their body, thunder strikes, wild wind and the thick blanket of dark clouds were proving to be rather effective difficulties on their journey. Hold on tight. Hiccup yelled at them as the storm grew stronger as they went through it. It seemed as if they were reaching the center of the storm. Suddenly a thunder strike came down and almost hit Stormfly. The Nada jolted back due to the pain caused by the thunder strike and sudden shock. This caused Astrid to lose her grip and she fell from Stormfly's back. She screamed as she plunged downwards. Hiccup heard her screams and looked over to see her falling. Astrid. Hiccup yelled out in worry and unhooked himself from the saddle and dove towards her. He positioned his arms by his side so that he could reach the maximum velocity and reach Astrid faster. As the distance between them slowly closed, Astrid looked up to see Hiccup coming towards her. She raised her right hand up to try to reach him. When the distance finally closed between them, Hiccup grabbed her and pulled her towards him and hugged her as he flipped her so that his back was now facing the ocean. Just moments later they crashed into the cold water of the sea. The rest of the gang and the dragons of the fallen dragon riders looked down at the ocean in concern and worry as the humans called out for their friends while trying to get a glimpse of them. Suddenly after a few moments Hiccup and Astrid popped out of the water. Toothless. Hiccup yelled out as he and Astrid floated in the water. The Night Fury flew down as fast as he could the moment he heard his human friend calling for him. Hiccup held Astrid close to him as Toothless snatched him out of the water and threw them on his back. Hiccup maneuvered himself so that they landed on the back of the dragon. You okay, Astrid? Hiccup asked. Yeah. Yeah, I am fine. Just gulped down some seawater. Astrid told him. Stormfly came beside them and apologetically crooned. It's okay, Stormfly. It wasn't your fault. Astrid comforted the female Nada. After which, with the help of Hiccup and Toothless, she hopped back on Stormfly's back. After some more time they were finally out of the storm. Woo! That was fun. Rough Nut exclaimed. That I agree with you, my sister. Tough Nut told her. As for Snotlout, he was on the verge of puking. And Fishlegs was clearly shaken, but held it together. But they all stopped when they looked in front. They saw an island in front of them. It wasn't very big, but they figured out it was the island Hiccup was referring to. We're here. Hiccup proclaimed, confirming their assumptions. This made everyone grin and laugh out of happiness. Sometime later. It must be somewhere around here. Hiccup mumbled as he ran through the plains, looking for something. The gang were close by, trying to keep up with him. It had been some time since they landed on the island. They had dismounted the dragons and let them rest as they went out on the search for the plant they needed on foot. Hiccup was guiding them through the area. Hiccup! Look! Astrid suddenly exclaimed. Hiccup looked at her to see she was pointing towards something. When he looked at what she was pointing at, a smile crept on his face. In the distance there were multiple tall bush-like plants. All of them had golden yellow-colored leaves which were shining under the bright sunlight. Gilmerikelblada. Fishlegs said in awe. Hiccup looked back at the gang and they could see him smiling like a madman. A smile crept onto their faces as well. A week later. It's been a week since their little adventure. The dragons were cured and healthy. Hiccup had brought back some plants with him this time, which he had planted on his island. He was currently walking around with Astrid accompanying him. They talked and laughed while enjoying the peaceful moments they were having. That was one crazy adventure. Astrid said. Yeah. But it was worth it. Hiccup said. A sudden chirp caught their attention. They looked up to see a terrible terror flying towards them. It landed on Hiccup's shoulder and said something to him. Hiccup's expression became serious as he heard what the terror said. Hiccup, what happened? Astrid asked. Hiccup looked at her and said, there are ships approaching this island. Ships that are from Berk. Chapter 20, The Calm Before the Storm. Chapter text. Stoic stared at the island in front of him with determination. It had taken him longer than he had expected to gather his men and get back here. We will be there soon. Stay prepared. Stoic commanded his men. The Vikings present on the dock quickly rushed to get equipped and got into their positions. Gobber walked over to his friend and stood beside him. "You're sure this is a good idea?" Gobber asked. "Maybe. Maybe not. But I am willing to take the risk. This time we are prepared and I won't underestimate him. I just hope he hasn't done anything to Astrid and her friends."